Chapter 38:58. Yao Huang was covered with wounds, but he couldn't help laughing when he saw Lan Yaozong's miserable appearance. Yi Chengfeng said coldly, "Watch them. Don't worry, National Master." Yi Chengfeng's figure disappeared, and the next moment, he appeared in front of Ghostface. "Slave Yi, what are you doing? Guards, come and protect me. I am the king of the Lan Empire. You can't kill me. This is the iron law of the floating island. Slave Yi, do you hear me?" Yi Audian looked away, and a smile slowly bloomed on his face. "We have been waiting for this day." Yi Akshuan continued, "For this day, we have sacrificed too much." He looked down at his ugly, scaly hands and couldn't help but chuckle. Yi Wang licked the blood from the corner of his mouth and whispered, "National Master has sacrificed more than we have." Yi Audian gently patted him on the shoulder. "Anyway, we can finally avenge the young master. Once we're underground, we'll be able to face our master." Yi Audi suddenly lowered his eyes, and his voice sounded like he was about to cry. "But National Master, he won't even have the chance to meet the young master in the next life." Ghostface's body was also wrapped by the cutting thousand knives, and he was rolling on the ground like Lan Yaozong. Without a commander, the 100,000 soldiers of the Dark Knight army immediately became scattered. The battlefield became one-sided. The Xiaoyao army ushered in their first great victory. Looking at the white-robed zither player, the stunning girl, slowly descending from the sky. No one knew who started at first, but the free, unfettered soldier shouted loudly, "Xiaoyao, Xiaoyao, who else but me can do it? Xiaoyao, Xiaoyao, dominate the world." His voice shook the mountains and rivers, and his aura shook the 9 provinces. From now on, no matter where the people of the floating island went, no one would forget Xiaoyao City. No one would ever forget Liberty City, and no one would ever forget the musician called Jun Mayan. Muyin had just landed on the ground. The people of the Xiaoyao sect surrounded her. "Little sister, are you okay?" "Sixth sister, you are really amazing. Now your feather grace can cover hundreds of thousands of soldiers at the same time? Ha ha! If the Xiaoyao sect fights in groups, won't we be invincible?" Mu Yin is about to say something. Suddenly, a loud rumbling sound came from underground again. Mu Yan's complexion changes, and he promptly shouts, "Quickly retreat." The other members of the Xiaoyao sect also reacted quickly. Just as Mayan's voice left her mouth, Yin Ruhan and the others had already flown up into the sky. Screams could be heard one after another. Mu Yin steadies herself in the air and looks down. Even with her composure, she couldn't help but reveal a shocked expression. The screams just now came from the people of the 3 alliances, 6 families, and 8 sects. Different from Mu Yin and the others who instantly soared into the sky. All of them had fallen into the pit. Clearly, every single one of them was a high-level cultivator above the Earth creation realm. But after falling into the pit, none of them could fly up. Under their feet, it was as if there were ghostly claws grabbing at them, pulling at them, preventing them from escaping. The pit was very, very deep. Looking down from the sky, it was almost impossible to see the bottom. One could only vaguely see a dark red light flickering. As the dark red light flickered, the bodies of those closest to the bottom of the pit seemed to be eaten by something, and they began to disappear rapidly. Chapter 38:59. Gulp. Lung Yuma couldn't help but swallow. This is what Yi Chengfeng meant when he said that he wanted the entire floating island to die with him. This is his revenge for Lan Chushi. The people of Liberty City weren't involved, but they were shocked speechless by the hellish scene in front of them. Mayor Jun, help." Gufaping jumped at the bottom of the pit and screamed, "I don't know Lan Chushi. What happened back then had nothing to do with the Weiwa Pavilion. Mayor Jun, Boss Jun, Grandma Jun, and everyone in Liberty City, help." Just now, when the martial arts practice field collapsed, apart from the Sidhu family elder who had always been by Mu Yan's side, who was pulled by Mu Yin and didn't fall. The others from the 3 alliances, 6 families, and 8 sects, including the Weiwa Pavilion and the Hongyan sect, fell into the pit and were caught by invisible claws, unable to escape. Mu Yin couldn't help but touch her forehead. She wasn't familiar with any of the sects and families on the floating island. But neither the Weiwa Pavilion nor the Hongyan sect hit Liberty City when it was down. She naturally didn't want these people to die just like that. But for Yi Chengfeng, the Lan Yao sect and Yi Shuesong weren't the only enemies. The natives of the entire floating island were the descendants of the people who had killed Lan Chushi. He wanted them all to die with him. He had done his best by killing the cultivators from the 3 alliances, 6 families, and 8 sects, leaving the others on the floating island alive. It wouldn't be easy to kill Yi Chengfeng. Mu Yan turned to Luo Yu. Xiang Yinzhou of the Sacred Heaven Alliance did me a favor. Ling Yuxing added, Liberty City has emptied most of the treasures in the Weiwa Pavilion. Gu Feiping's words were harsh, but he's been doing his best to promote Liberty City recently. Lung Yuma said, My mother and grandpa are still recovering in the soul-nurturing pond of the Hongyan sect. Without the soul-nurturing pond, I wouldn't have met the little monk. After that, the 3 of them stared at Luo Yu. Luo Yu stepped back. Why? Why are you telling me this? Also, don't look at me like that. I'm scared. It made him look like a delicious piece of braised pork. Mayan slowly hooks up the corner of her lips and says unhurriedly, Shao Qi, don't you think that Yi Chengfeng treats you differently? Naturally, he won't listen to anyone else pleading for leniency. But if you plead for leniency, you might get a different result. Luo Yu blinked. You're joking, right? Chu Moli said warmly. It's not the same. Won't you know once you try it? Thus, Luo Yu, who was forced to do something beyond her ability, carefully walked in front of Yi Chengfeng with a belly full of suspicion. Yi Aishan and the other 3 were whispering something in Yi Chengfeng's ear. When he saw Luo Yu coming over, he immediately revealed a joyful and respectful expression. He did not stop her at all and retreated. Luo Yu, this is really strange. Now, even he was starting to doubt whether what 6 senior sister and the others said was true. It was one thing for Tian, Di, Xian, and Huang to be gentle towards him. But why were their expressions mixed with respect and joy? I didn't know them before, did I? When Yi Chengfeng faced the others, he always had a faint and cold smile on his lips. Like he was joking, like he was careless, like he was mocking everything in the world. But as soon as he saw Luo Yu, the smile on his face disappeared completely. He didn't even bother to look at her. Chapter 3860. Luo Yu couldn't help but feel nervous again. Was this what 6 senior sister said? She treated him differently? Would he succeed if he begged for mercy? Don't be ridiculous. She obviously didn't like him. Okay? What do you want from me? Yi Chengfeng asked. Before Luo Yu could answer, he said coldly, What happened here has nothing to do with Liberty City. Why don't you leave? Luo Yu swallowed. Pointing at Gu Feiping and the others who were still screaming, he told them why he had come. The person in front of him didn't say anything. He didn't even look at him. The energy at the bottom of the pit curled up and formed a strong wind, blowing his clothes and long hair up. Luo Yu finally realized. The cruel and cold imperial advisor in front of him was so skinny, as if he could be blown apart by the wind. Just when Luo Yu thought he wouldn't agree, Yi Chengfeng suddenly waved his hand. Then dozens of people floated up from the bottom of the pit. There were the leaders and disciples of the Micro-Moon Pavilion and the Grand Goose sect. There was Xiang Yinzhou, the leader of the Sacred Heaven Alliance, and his subordinates. There were also some cultivators who had shown that they knew nothing about the past 10,000 years ago in the battle just now. Luo Yu couldn't react immediately. He didn't expect that Yi Chengfeng would really let them go because of his words. Also, he let so many people go. Luo Yu opened his mouth. For the first time, he had a strange feeling. He didn't like to keep his words to himself. Thinking of this, he asked without hesitation, My 6 senior sister said you treated me differently? But Yi Chengfeng, I don't know you. On the contrary, I have a grudge against you. Why did you treat me differently? Now that he thought about it, from the first time he met Yi Chengfeng in Liberty City until now, this man had never harmed him or even forced him to do anything. On the contrary, when Xiang Weiran and the Blue Glory sect wanted to kill him, he saved him again and again. Luo Yu's words finally made Yi Chengfeng turn around slowly. That pair of beautiful eyes was still cold, but there seemed to be some kind of emotion that was higher than the mountains and deeper than the sea. Just consider it as what I owed you in my previous life. Luo Yu opened his eyes slightly and wanted to ask more. But Yi Chingfeng had already looked away and said coldly, I've done what you asked. Now, can Liberty City get out of here? Luo Yu was stunned. Who was this guy? How could he turn hostile just like that? However, when he remembered that the other party had just released him, he could only grit his teeth and force a smile. All right, the Imperial Preceptor has ordered us to scram immediately, all right? With that, he turned to leave. However, just as he took a step forward, he heard a hoarse voice behind him. Leave the floating island and never look back. In this life, you have the most beautiful and brilliant future, and you have loved ones who sincerely protect you. In this life, you will definitely live very well. However, Chu Shi, your night slave, will no longer be able to accompany you. Luo Yu's footsteps stopped. He felt that Yi Chengfeng's tone was very strange. It was as if he was talking to someone he knew. Just as he was about to turn around, he heard a scream. Little Seven, be careful. It was Mu Yan's voice. Almost as soon as the words entered her ears, Luo Yu immediately leapt up and retreated. However, he was still a step too late. A violent wave of air surged up from the bottom of the pit. It formed a huge energy ball and charged towards Luo Yu. Luo Yu had already summoned his puppet. However, when the monarch puppet touched the energy ball, it was directly split into two halves. Chapter 3861. On the other side, Mu Yin, Yun Ruhan, and the others' faces changed as they rushed over like lightning. The sound wall formed by the zither was quickly being formed, but they were still a step too late. A pseudo-monarch puppet couldn't even withstand one blow. If Luo Yu was hit by this energy ball, the consequences would be unimaginable. However, at this moment, a figure appeared in front of Luo Yu. Bang! After a loud noise, a strong smell of blood permeated Luo Yu's nose. Airwaves surged, sand and stones flew everywhere. But he didn't feel any pain on his body. State Preceptor, how are you? How could you let yourself get hurt so badly at this time? Luo Yu turned around in a daze. She saw that the figure that had always seemed extremely cold and powerful, that made her afraid, that she couldn't catch up to, was covered in blood and slowly falling down. There was a huge bloody hole in his chest. The bloody hole should be where his heart should be, but she couldn't see his heart. Luo Yu reacted quickly and reached out to support him before he fell to the ground. Yi Chingfeng, why did you save me? Again and again, he didn't even care about his life. Yi Chengfeng pushed away the hand that was supporting him and raised his hand. The water Qilin appeared beside him. The huge beast roared at the sky, opened its bloody mouth, and bit forward. There was an energy ball that had just exploded and shrunk by half, but it didn't completely disappear. When the water Qilin bit it, there was a scream from the energy ball. Luo Yu slightly widened her eyes. That was Lan Yao Zong's voice. After the scream, the blue, brilliant sect master's hysterical laughter rang out. Yi Chingfeng, I said that I won't die. No matter how much you want to kill me, as long as I have the immortal medicine that Wu Shang Palace left for me, I will live forever. And you completely activate the Avicii Pagoda and destroy the Heaven Halberd. The moment the Heaven Halberd is destroyed, the backlash will be enough to make your soul fly away and scatter. You and your lackeys will die without a doubt. I am the true ruler of this country, the person who rules over the world. The water Qilin's throat let out an angry growl. It suddenly bit down. Lan Yao Zong immediately screamed again. If such a powerful divine beast had bitten a human, even a heaven-breaking tier elite would have died a long time ago. However, the strange thing was that although the Blue Glory sect was screaming, he was still alive. Ha ha ha! Yi Chengfeng, didn't you want to avenge Lan Chushi? Unfortunately, your injustice will never be fulfilled, because I am immortal and indestructible. If I can make a comeback once, I can make a comeback a second time. At that time, I will dig out Lan Chushi's corpse and grind his bones to ashes. Ha ha ha! That's right, there's also the little brat you're so protective of. Although his body contains my bloodline, He is too disobedient. What is more disgusting is that he can summon the real divine beast, Bai Zhe, just like Lan Chushi. Do you think I can't tell? You treat him as Lan Chushi's substitute. That's why you protect him. But how can I let you do as you wish? Once I regain my strength, I will make sure that he dies thoroughly. I will make sure that there is no trace of Lan Chushi left in this world. Chapter 3862. Using him as Lan Chushi's substitute? No way. Do I look like that gentle and jade-like young man? Or was it because he could summon the divine beast by Zhe? Luo Yu frowned. She did not know why, but she felt a little unhappy. Lan Liu was Lan Liu, unique in the world. He was definitely not someone's substitute. He took a few steps forward with a cold face and beckoned the water Qilin over. The water Qilin blinked its bell-like eyes, then obediently spat out a ball of something in its mouth. It was no longer an energy ball, but a bloody body without limbs. Lan Yaozong's limbs and abdomen were already eaten by the water Qilin. But strangely, his head and heart seemed to be protected by something. No matter how hard the water Qilin bit, it could not break them. The strangest thing was that as time passed, Lan Yaozong's body, which was full of holes, began to grow on its own. Yi Qingfeng's expression was cold. He stood up shakily and walked in front of Lan Yaozong. He formed a sword with his fingers, and a bone-piercing cold light shot out. Lan Yaozong immediately let out a shrill scream. Half of his head had been blown off, and his brains were flowing everywhere. But after crying for a while, Lan Yaozong's body lit up with a faint blue-black light. The broken head actually began to grow again. Ha! Ha ha! Yi Qingfeng, did you see that? You can't kill me. I am immortal. I will soon become the ruler of the three realms. Ha ha, what a pity! This gift from Wushang Palace should have belonged to Lan Chushi, but that idiot actually gave up on it and chose to revive you. So this gift has a chance to fall into my hands. If Lan Chushi wasn't so stupid, he would be the one who is immortal today. Ha ha! Yi Qingfeng clenched his fists tightly. Blood dripped from the gaps of his fingers. Luo Yu looked at this scene, and an indescribable anger suddenly surged in his heart. He suddenly took a step forward and shook his wrist. Countless small puppet insects flew out of his sleeves and pounced towards Lan Yaozong. Ah! A heart-wrenching and lung-splitting howl resounded between heaven and earth, causing the surrounding people to feel a chill run down their spines. Luo Yu glanced at Yi Qingfeng and said unhappily, "If you can't kill him, then you can't kill him. In this world, there are many ways to make people wish they were dead. Why torture yourself for this kind of person?" However, Yi Qingfeng waved his hand and dispersed the puppet insects on Lan Yaozong's body. "What are you doing?" Luo Yu was furious. "Are you blaming me for being nosy?" Yi Qingfeng shook his head and said in a low and hoarse voice, "Bloodline is fate, but it's also a sin. Once you're stained with karma, you won't be able to escape. I don't want you to be tainted by this. That kind of filthy trash has no right to dirty your path to the heavens." At this point, he closed his eyes, and the faintly discernible tenderness between his brows slowly faded away. "Furthermore, I already told you that this has nothing to do with the Carefree sect. Do you want to die with these people?" said Meng Hao coldly. Was he going to chase them away? Luo Yu was so angry that her cheeks were about to swell. Was there something wrong with this Yi Qingfeng? Was he the one who risked his life to save her? Was he the one who spoke sarcastically? Bastard, treating my kindness as malice. How much did he want to stay here? Chapter 3863. Luo Yu turned around angrily and was about to leave when a hand gently pressed on his shoulder. "Sixth senior sister?" Mu Yin smiled and patted his shoulder, signaling him to calm down. Then, she looked at Yi Qingfeng. "Does the Imperial Preceptor want to kill this Lan Yaozong? Perhaps I can lend you a hand." "Kill me? Just a little girl like you?" Before Yi Qingfeng could answer, Lan Yaozong could not help but laugh. "Do you know what kind of divine item the immortal elixir is? Do you know that as long as the energy of the immortal elixir doesn't dissipate, I am an immortal god?" "Ha ha!" Lan Yaozong laughed so hard that his broken body kept shaking. His face was full of pride and madness. so much so that he did not notice that a chubby little yellow chick was walking on its short legs. With its short legs, it staggered up to Lan Yaozong's chest. Why did it climb up? Huang did not know. Mama told it to come. So it came. It was the most obedient baby. Its chubby little body crawled for a long time before it reached Lan Yaozong's chest. In the end, because Lan Yaozong's laughter was too loud, his chest shook. The little yellow chick was careless and slipped, rolling away. Woo woo woo. My butt hurts. The little yellow chick got up from the ground, crying. Its big eyes were filled with tears, and it climbed up Lan Yaozong's chest again. Lan Yaozong finally noticed the little yellow chick's existence. He frowned and subconsciously tilted his head back. What is it? When he realized that the fat chick did not have any spiritual power or magic power, he could not help but sneer. He looked at Mu Yin with a mocking gaze. What? Are you going to use this little beast to kill me? As he spoke, his body moved slightly, and the little yellow chick rolled down again. This time, it fell even harder, and tears fell down. But it did not seek comfort or hug from Mu Yin, nor was it angry. Instead, it flapped its little wings, revealing a determined look, and climbed up again. This time, Lan Yaozong revealed an impatient expression. At this moment, he only wanted to enjoy Yi Chengfeng's furious and unwilling expression, and then imagine his glory after making a comeback. Only then could he suppress the fear and anger brought by the pain in his body. Although the little chick wasn't a threat to him in the slightest, it was like a thorn in his heart, driving him crazy. Bastard, you're courting death. Lan Yaozong's eyes flashed with a brutal light. Could it be that Jun Mayan thinks that she doesn't even have the ability to kill a little beast now that she doesn't have her arms and legs? As soon as he finished speaking, his body emitted a bluish-black light. Something floated out of his chest, forming a palm-sized ball that shot toward the little chick. Yi Huang couldn't help but shout, "Be careful." It was the same energy ball that had attacked Luo Yu. As long as one was hit, it would be like being attacked by a Xian immortal. Even the Imperial Advisor was severely injured because of this, not to mention a little chubby chick that didn't even have the slightest spiritual power cultivation. Who would have thought that both Mayan and Luo Yu would have a calm expression, without the slightest bit of worry? How could this be? Lan Yaozong's incredulous exclamation pulled Yi Huang back from his thoughts. He turned his head and saw that the hurricane caused by the energy ball had messed up the little chick's smooth and soft yellow hair. Chapter 3864. The little chick spread its chubby little wings, desperately trying to maintain its balance. It kept making sounds that didn't sound like a rooster's, yet no one could understand it. Apart from that, nothing happened. He wasn't blasted away, nor did he die. In fact, there wasn't even a single injury on his body. This time, not to mention the Blue Glory sect, Yi Huang, and the others. Even Yi Chengfeng showed a startled expression. He looks at Mayan and whispers, "What is it?" While speaking, the flustered and exasperated Lan Yaozong attacked the little chick again. This time, the impact of the energy ball was even greater, causing the little chick to squawk in fright. It could only lie down with its chubby little body and use its wings and claws to grab onto Lan Yaozong's clothes, pressing its little head against Lan Yaozong's chest. No, how could this be? My elixir of immortality. No, you can't leave. This is a gift from Wushang Palace. I am immortal. This is my elixir of immortality. Lan Yaozong's expression changed from shock to fear to despair. The bluish-black light that had been surrounding him quickly disappeared. His head, which was already healing, began to rot rapidly, including his body. All of his cultivation and spiritual power were sucked clean in an instant. His originally handsome face instantly became even older and uglier than a malicious ghost. In just a few breaths, Lan Yaozong couldn't even scream anymore. He could only let out panting sounds that seemed like he would stop breathing at any moment. His murky eyes glared at the little chick on his chest. His mouth opened as if he wanted to say something, but no sound came out. Huang, come back. When little chick heard Mu Yan's voice, It immediately wiggled its chubby little body happily and rushed over. Gee goo goo. Mummy. Huang Wang was very obedient just now, wasn't it? Mayan smiles as she smooths out its hair that has been messed up by the wind. She says softly, Huang Wang did very well. You've helped Mama a lot. It was rare for the little chick to be praised, so it immediately jumped around in Mu Yan's hand. Only then did Mu Yan look at Yi Chengfeng. She thought for a moment, then handed the little chick in her hand to Yi Chengfeng. What does State Preceptor think Huang is? Yi Chengfeng hesitated for a moment before taking the fat chickie from her hands. The little chick was not afraid of strangers. It tilted its head in Yi Chengfeng's palm. Her big round eyes stared unblinkingly at the person in front of her. It didn't like being touched by someone it didn't know well. But good-looking people were an exception. Brother Bai Xie had said it before, looks are justice. A good-looking person could help Huang eat 2 more bowls of rice. Thus, little chick flashed a cute smile at Yi Chengfeng and blew out a friendly bubble with its sharp beak. The bubbles floated down onto Yi Chengfeng's face and exploded, covering his entire face. Yi Chengfeng expressionlessly returns a certain stupid chicken to Mu Yan and lightly says, I don't know. He couldn't sense the slightest energy fluctuation from the little chick. This was also within Mu Yan's expectation. After all, even Di Mingju and little martial uncle couldn't find out the little chick's origin and characteristics. The only thing she knew was that little chick must be related to Wushang Palace. Mu Yan smiles and says, Huang Wang is from Wushang Palace. Chapter 3865. Yi Chengfeng's pupils shrank, and he couldn't help but look at Luo Yu. Luo Yu asked curiously, what's wrong? Yi Chengfeng closed his eyes and didn't say anything. He turned around and came to Lan Yaozong. Lan Yaozong looked at him excitedly, his eyes full of pleading. His dry lips desperately opened and closed, and an old and broken voice came out, Don't kill us. Chengfeng, save. Yi Chengfeng lifted his foot and kicked him back into the huge pit. His action was clean and neat, without any hesitation. Mayan and Luo Yu couldn't help but applaud this master for not dragging his feet. The screams in the huge pit had already begun to weaken. Most of the cultivators' bodies had completely melted, including their skin and bones. Meanwhile, those who were still bitterly holding on were currently looking at Yi Chengfeng with gazes that were either filled with hatred, fear, or pleading. Some people were cursing crazily. Some people were using all their spiritual power to break free. Some people were begging Yi Chengfeng, even kneeling down and kowtowing again and again. At this moment, the pit was like an endless hell. And Yi Chengfeng was the Grim Reaper wielding his scythe. After today, no, perhaps only a few hours later, these traces would be completely erased. From now on, the 1 country, 3 alliances, 6 families, and 8 major sects of the floating island would be reshuffled. Perhaps it wouldn't be long before even the floating island would cease to exist. Master, I beg you to let my grandfather and ancestor go. Xiang Yinzhou knelt in front of Yi Chengfeng, crying and kowtowing. Yi Chengfeng listened to the cursing and pleading, and his eyes looked at the bloody hell-like scene, but there was not a trace of emotion in his eyes. He didn't even look at Xiang Yinzhou. Yi Adi sneered. Leader Xiang, when your Xiang family forced the young master to death, did you ever think about karma and retribution? Xiang Yunzhou's face was full of tears, and he couldn't help but look at Mayan with a pleading look. But this time, Mayan just shook her head. Leader Xiang, you and I are even. The grievances of your floating island, you should solve them yourselves. Xiang Yunzhou's face was full of despair, and he almost wanted to jump back into the pit to save Xiang Ba and Xiang Weiran. But before he could do anything, someone had already struck him on the back of his neck. Xiang Yunzhou only felt an ice-cold liquid entering his body from behind, and then he lost consciousness. The one who attacked Xiang Yunzhou was Steward Wu, who had once received Mu Yin in the Holy Alliance. He orders people to lift up the unconscious Xiang Yunzhou. Then he deeply bows to Mu Yin. Many thanks to City Lord Jun for leaving behind a glimmer of hope for my Holy Alliance. He then turned towards Yi Changfeng. "Thank you for showing mercy, Imperial Preceptor." After that, he kowtowed heavily to the two of them again, and then he took out his flying boat and left. The people of the Weiwa Pavilion, the Hongyan sect, and the Sidhu family also came to thank Mu Yin. They looked at the deep pit with complicated expressions and then left. "City Lord Jun, you're asking us what we should do from now on? Hell, what can I do? If I fall back to the immortal cultivation continent, then I fall back. Where I cultivate is still cultivation. As long as we are together, no one can bully me." Recalling Gu Feiping's words before he left, Mu Yin couldn't help but curve her lips. On the entire floating island, he was the one who understood the most. Maybe when Wei Mian and the others went to the immortal cultivation continent to meet with the Netherfire army, she should ask them to take care of the Weiwa Pavilion and the Sidhu family. Bookmark, easy to read. Chapter 3866. Mu Yin has a hunch that the seven of them won't have much time left on the floating island. However, Wei Mian, Rui Nyang, and the rest of the carefree army obviously couldn't follow them. In that case, it would be better to let them go directly to the cultivation continent to meet up with the Netherflame army. As for the desolate Qi corroding his body after falling into the lower realms, there was no need to worry about that at all. He only needed to prepare some pills. "Why aren't you guys leaving?" Yi Qingfeng's cold voice came, pulling Mayan back from her thoughts. But before he could reply, Luo Yu had already pulled her back and said in annoyance, "Sixth senior sister, let's go before people chase us away again and again." Mu Yin can't help but knit her brows. She always felt that there was a trace of urgency in Yi Chengfeng's voice, as if he was very afraid that they would stay here. No, more accurately, he was afraid that little Seven would stay here. However, this hellish place indeed made her uncomfortable, and she didn't want to stay any longer. Mayan waves her hand, and Wei Mian immediately leads the free, unfettered army away. The members of the Xiao Yao sect also took out their flying treasures and left. Halfway there, Chu Moli suddenly said, "We seem to have forgotten something." Mu Yin couldn't help but knock her own head, looking like she suddenly remembered something. Avicii Tower. Yi Chengfeng hasn't returned the Avicii Pagoda to me yet. Ling Yuxing said, "This Yi Chengfeng isn't trying to drive us away by any means possible because he wants to take Junior Sister's treasure for himself, right? No, we have to get the Avicii Pagoda back." The six of them looked at Luo Yu in unison. Luo Yu pointed at her own nose and said angrily, "Why is it me again?" The huge blue Thearch's camp was empty. It was dead silent. Yes, even though he could hear the screams coming from the pit, he still felt that the silence was bone-chilling. Yi Chengfeng closed his eyes and hid the reluctance in his eyes. When he opened his eyes again, a casual smile had returned to his face. Rumble. The earth rumbled once more. The entire Blue Arch camp, including the buildings in the Blue Arch city, started to collapse. The wailing in the pit became even more mournful and desperate. Yi Chengfeng could vaguely hear Ishu Esong, Xiang Weiran, and the others cursing crazily. This was because beneath their feet, streaks of dazzling silver light shone. Their bodies, which they had been using all their strength to prevent from melting, began to rapidly disintegrate. Everyone in the pit realized that their lives had come to an end. At this moment, Xiang Weiran and the rest finally began to regret. Yi Chengfeng, I beg you, please spare us. We know we were wrong. We shouldn't have killed Lan Chushi back then. You can kill us, but please don't let our souls dissipate. Revenge breeds revenge. Lan Chushi has been dead for so many years. Why are you still thinking about him? Yi Chengfeng, I'm willing to give you all the treasures of the Life League, as long as you let us go. Lan Chushi's death really had nothing to do with us. Why do we have to avenge our ancestors? Can't I apologize to you on behalf of my ancestors? Let us go, please. Boo-hoo-hoo. He listened to the people below confess their sins over and over again. Yi Chengfeng could not help but burst into laughter. Chushi, did you hear that? Can you hear the voices of these people confessing to you? As he laughed, 2 streaks of bloody tears rolled down from the corners of his eyes. Chapter 3867. Boom! A sound 100 times more violent than the previous 2 tremors came from the ground. The entire floating island began to shake violently, making a buzzing sound. The screams stopped abruptly. Yi Ah glanced down, only to see darkness. No more pairs of eyes full of fear and resentment. Dead. 1 country, 3 alliances, 6 families, and 8 sects on the floating island. Those who had wronged the young master. Finally, they were all dead. Yi Ah and Yi Ah hugged each other, crying and laughing, as if they had gone mad. Yi Ah and Yi Ah also couldn't help but have red eyes. They looked at each other, only to see the sadness in each other's eyes. Yi Qingfeng slowly wiped away the blood and tears in his eyes and said in a hoarse voice, "Are you all ready?" Yi Ah smiled gently and answered on behalf of the 4 people. "Of course, we have been ready for too long." In the huge pit, a huge silver halberd slowly emerged. The halberd was silvery white, extremely beautiful, but the halberd was mottled with terrible cracks. That was the pillar of the floating island, the sacred object cast from the body of mortals, the heaven-reaching halberd. Yi Ah only felt that his eyes seemed to be stung by the dazzling white light. His tears couldn't stop falling, but the corners of his mouth slowly hooked up, revealing a bright smile. "Young master, Atian/Adi/Ashian/Ahuang can finally return to your side." The 4 people spoke in unison, then spread their arms and pounced on the heaven-reaching halberd without hesitation. The figures of the 4 people gradually disappeared into the flickering light of the heaven-reaching halberd, as if swallowed. Yi Qingfeng just watched quietly. A distant and vague voice seemed to ring in his ears. The heaven-reaching halberd is destroyed. The 4 pillars collapse. The Azura wind rises. The people are plunged into misery and suffering. Only with blood as a sacrifice, life as a sacrifice, and soul as a sacrifice can you stabilize a part of the world and not let thousands of creatures be involved in your grievances. If one day you really want to activate this murderous, ancient life extermination formation, please remember what I said today. The cycle of the heavenly Tao is a cycle of karma and retribution. The sins of today's slaughter might one day be repaid to the people most important to you. Yi Qingfeng raised his hand to cover his face and murmured, "Whether it's reincarnation or killing, I'll bear it all by myself." He only hoped that in this life, he would be able to live a peaceful life and never have to experience the pain and sorrow of his previous life. In reality, the karma had already landed on Luo Yu. That was why he had reincarnated as a child of the Blue Glory sect and the Shao family. That was why he lost his mother at a young age and suffered the hardships of wandering from place to place. In fact, he had almost killed his most precious treasure with his own hands. So, everything should end here. All the sins would be borne by him. All the pain would be borne by him. Yi Qingfeng closed his eyes and jumped down towards the heaven-reaching halberd. However, in the next moment, the corner of his clothes was suddenly pulled by someone. There was a tearing sound at the corner of his clothes. However, a warm hand quickly grabbed his wrist. A familiar voice rang in his ears. "Yi Qingfeng, what are you doing?" Yi Qingfeng raised his head, and the young man's handsome face came into view. He had obviously changed his appearance, but that person still had a pair of clear, glass-like eyes. And when he smiled, there were shallow dimples on his cheeks. As long as he looked at him, it was like the sunlight falling on his body in winter, melting his frozen heart little by little. Chapter 3868. Yi Qingfeng's lips curled up slightly. He looked like he was smiling and crying. "I can see you one more time before I die. Is this God's mercy?" Luo Yu was surprised. "You guys want to die? Why?" If he didn't want 6 sisters of Vichy Pagoda back, he wouldn't have seen this. He wouldn't have thought that after Yi Qingfeng and Tianyi Xianhuang killed everyone from the 3 alliances, 6 families, and 8 sects, they wanted to commit suicide. "Why do I have to die if I can't get through? Are you poisoned or cursed? Let my 6th senior sister and 3rd senior brother help you." Luo Yu shouted as he tried to pull him up. He saw Tianyi Xianhuang jump down from the sky, but he couldn't stop him. But Yi Qingfeng was still pulled by him. Yi Qingfeng raised his head and looked at him deeply, as if he wanted to carve his appearance into his mind without a single mistake. Shao Qi, can I call you that? A hoarse voice came from his cracked lips with unspeakable longing and longing. He heard people from the Xiao Yao school call him that, so he asked. It was as if by doing so, they would be able to get closer to each other, much closer. Luo, you almost spat out blood. You want to talk about how to call me now? Please, can't you wait until we come up? Fine, you can call me whatever you want. Can't you come up quickly? The power of the halberd is so strong, I can't hold you anymore. Yi Qingfeng didn't seem to hear him at all. He just said hoarsely, if there's a next life, will you still let Yi Qingfeng stay by your side? Even if there were no mountains to see, even if he couldn't appreciate flowers in spring and snow in winter, even if he could only be a lowly servant. As long as I can stay by your side. Luo Yu was startled. Then he realized. Yi Qingfeng thought he was Lan Chushi. He clicked his tongue, seriously suspecting that this guy's mind was not normal. But just when he wanted to say it clearly, he saw Yi Qingfeng's eyes that were so low that they were close to despair. He said, okay. Then he saw that perverted imperial advisor who killed people like flies laugh lightly. His sharp eyes instantly became bright and radiant. It was as if the word good was enough to give him everything in the world. Luo Yu was momentarily stunned. Her chest seemed to be blocked by something, and she couldn't tell what it was. He pursed his lips and said, don't talk anymore. I'll pull you up first. Unexpectedly, Yi Qingfeng just smiled like that, then said hoarsely, it's a pity that I don't have an afterlife. I never have, but you are not Lan Chushi, and I am not Yi Qingfeng. I'm Yi Nu, the Yi Nu who promised to stay by Lan Chushi's side forever and never let him die. Luo Yu's eyes suddenly widened, because Yi Qingfeng held his hand and pride opened the 5 fingers that were holding his wrist one by one. Yi Qingfeng, what are you doing? Little 7, how I wish I was Yi Qingfeng. Lan Liu was the reincarnation of Lan Chushi. Yi Qingfeng was the reincarnation of Yi Nu. No matter how many twists and turns we go through, we can still be together forever and ever. It would be great if that was the case. But I'm sorry. I can't let the 4 pillars collapse and the people die. I can't let these killings dirty your path to heaven. As long as you can live on, even if I die and my soul is destroyed, so what? Yi Qingfeng. Chapter 3869. Thousands of years ago. You want me to resurrect Lan Chushi? Huang Fuzun looked at the young man, kneeling in front of him, and could not help but shake his head. You two are really interesting. He used his life and 3 spiritual and 7 physical souls in exchange for your body's recovery. I spent thousands of years to repair your 3 physical souls and body. Now, you want to use your life in exchange for his resurrection. Aren't you letting his efforts and mine go to waste? Yi did not say anything. He threw away his pride and thorns and knelt in front of Huang Fuzun, the guardian of Wushang Palace. He kowtowed again and again. Huang Fuzun shook his head. The beast's soul is destroyed and Xue Jin is dead. You should know very well that Lan Chushi can't be resurrected. The light in Yi Nu's eyes dimmed. It was as if his soul was hollowed out. He was alive, but he was like a walking puppet. Huang Fuzun suddenly said, it's true that I can't resurrect Lan Chushi, but his 3 spiritual and 7 physical souls are integrated into the world of this floating island. If you can pay the price, I can extract one of his spiritual and 1 physical soul and put it in the place with the densest chi of heaven and earth to nourish it. If one day his 3 spiritual and 7 physical souls can be restored by themselves, I'll send him into reincarnation. But if not, before Huang Fuzun could finish, Yi Nu said firmly, all right, I'm willing to pay any price as long as you send him into reincarnation. Heaven, earth, Xian, and Huang knelt down too. If Yi Nu alone is not enough, please count us in. Huang Fuzun sighed. Idiots. Don't you even want to hear the price? I want you to reincarnate after this life. In other words, Unless you don't die in this life, once you die, your souls will be summoned back to Wushang Palace and become emotionless puppets in Wushang Palace. From then on, you will be trapped in this cold, underground palace. You will never be able to escape. But Lan Shushi's 3 spiritual and 7 physical souls might not be nurtured, and he might not be resurrected. The price you pay might be in vain. Are you willing to do that? I am. Huang Fuzun smiled and said, "All right, I will fulfill your wish." With a wave of his hand, he threw a few pills in front of the 5 of them. Swallow the pills in front of you and recite my words in your heart. The contract will be established. I won't lie to you. Xiuzhe have long lives. My Wushang Palace does not do unprofitable business. Not only can this pill establish a contract, but it will also restrict you from leaving the floating island and ascending to the Xioshan continent. As long as one was unable to ascend, no matter how high one's cultivation became, one's lifespan would continue to accumulate more and more desolate qi in one's body. It would be impossible to extend one's lifespan, much less live forever. In a few thousand years, they would definitely die. You'd better think carefully whether you want to take it or not. Yinu picked up the pill and swallowed it without hesitation. A moment later, a blue light emitted from his body. It was a sign that the contract had been completed. Tian, Di, Xian, and Huang followed suit. Looking at the 4 flames in his palm, Huang Fuzun smiled and held them gently. I have another request. Yinu said in a hoarse voice, I want to stay in Wushang Palace until I have enough power to avenge Chu Shi. Before I die, I want to get back everything they owe Chu Shi. Chapter 3870. Huang Fuzun said gently, This is not in line with the rules of Wushang Palace, but I have a good impression of you little guys. So, I can make an exception and promise you. Filthy demon possession, tearing heart, and breaking intestines. Huang Fuzun looked at the expressionless young man in front of him, almost speechless. There are so many cultivation methods in Wushang Palace, but you chose the most brutal one. It was powerful, but painful. How could it not be painful to cut off half of one's body and turn it into a demon body? While hurting the enemy, they were also hurting themselves. But Huang Fuzun had been bored for thousands of years, so he had been observing their every move in Wushang Palace. So, he knew why they chose such a cultivation method that hurt others and themselves. Because the last chapter of this cultivation method was the method to set up the forbidden spell, Ancient Life Extinguishing Formation. Only by practicing this cultivation method could one activate the Avicii Pagoda, the pillar that destroyed the floating island, the Heavenly Halberd. And this was the only way to make the people who harmed Lan Chushi pay the price. Huang Fuzun said helplessly, I have spent thousands of years healing your wounds, and you have spent thousands of years cultivating. Now, those who forced Lan Chushi to his death are probably all dead. Is it worth it to destroy your bodies to practice the evil method? Why don't you enjoy the last moments of your lives? Yinu sneered. Enjoy. What is there to enjoy in this dirty world without Lan Chushi? What's more? He glanced at Huang Fuzun coldly. Wushang Palace never makes a loss. Haven't you been hoping that Heaven, Earth, Xian, and Huang can end this life soon? Isn't it what you want us to practice the evil method? Huang Fuzun laughed and turned to leave. As he walked, he waved his long sleeves. The stone doors in front of him suddenly opened one by one. At the end of the stone doors, there was the dazzling sunlight. Yinu couldn't help but close his eyes. It was a world that felt like it was a lifetime ago. Huang Fuzun's voice came to his ears. I know you are here to say goodbye. Let's go and seek justice for Lan Chushi and eliminate the hatred in your heart. But Yinu, there's one thing you must remember. Once the ancient life extinguishing formation is activated, the heavenly halberd will be destroyed and the 4 pillars will collapse. The Azura wind rose, plunging the people into misery and suffering. Only with blood as a sacrifice, with life as a sacrifice, with soul as a sacrifice, the heavenly Tao reincarnates, karma retribution. Today's sin of killing may one day be repaid to the person most important to you. Don't forget that one day, Lan Chushi might really be able to nurture 3 spiritual and 7 physical souls and reincarnate. Yi Nu clenched the small halberd that was full of cracks in his hand tightly. The corners of his mouth slowly curved into a cold and sinister smile. Heavenly Tao reincarnation? Karma? If there was retribution, then let it all fall on him. As long as Chu Shi could be reborn, as long as he could avenge the blood debt from 10,000 years ago by 100-fold. Yi Changfeng. At this moment, Luo Yu's body was faster than his mind. Seeing Yi Changfeng fall from the sky, he jumped down without hesitation, wanted to hold onto that distant and blurry figure tightly. Little 7. The anxious shouts of the people of the Xiao Yao sect came from behind. But Luo Yu couldn't care about anything at this moment. He only knew that he had to catch the person in front of him who was falling into the abyss. Yi Changfeng reached out his hand, and the small silver halberd in his palm flew towards Luo Yu. The small halberd suddenly emitted the same silver light as the heaven-reaching halberd. Chapter 38:71. When Luo Yu jumped down, he felt the powerful suction from the heaven-reaching halberd, making him unable to control his body. But after Yi Changfeng threw the small halberd, his body was suddenly wrapped by a warm ball of light. Then he was slowly sent back to the ground. Yi Changfeng showed him a bright smile. Shao Qi, in this life, you must live well. His fine black hair fluttered in the wind. His snow-white gown flapped violently. For the first time, the Yu's smile seemed so warm and pure, moving people's hearts. Then slowly, it disappeared in the light of the heaven-reaching halberd. The green mountain is not old, and the young man's hair turned white. A lifetime of care until the end of the year. Luo Yu's eyes suddenly widened, and he rushed out, almost disregarding everything. But this time, a pair of hands gripped him tightly. Shao Qi. Yin Ruhan's anxious voice came to his ears. Shao Qi, don't scare big brother. Luo Yu blankly looked at Yin Ruhan. After a long while, he murmured, Eldest senior brother, is Yi Changfeng dead? Yin Ruhan glanced at the heaven-reaching halberd and moved his lips, but didn't say anything. Luo Yu couldn't help but look at Chu Moli and Mu Yin. 3rd senior brother, 6th senior sister. Do you know what's going on? Mu Yin looked at Luo Yu with some worry. She waved her hand, and the Avicii pagoda shrunk to the size of a palm, returning to her palm. Through the Avicii pagoda's immature mind, Mu Yin could roughly guess the whole story. But for a moment, she didn't know how to answer Luo Yu, because she could see that Luo Yu didn't want Yi Changfeng to die. On the contrary, Chu Moli didn't have any misgivings, and said warmly, he should have sacrificed his own flesh and blood to stabilize the collapse of the floating island. Luo Yu was silent, his eyes staring at the silver halberd floating in the air. The halberd's body was crumbling bit by bit, disappearing bit by bit. Luo Yu didn't know why, but he felt as if something in his heart was disappearing bit by bit. Empty, cold, and unbearably lonely. Yin Ruhan patted his head and said softly, Let's keep watch here. Maybe they'll come back to life. Mayan sits down cross-legged and gently plucks the strings, playing a beautiful and soothing music. Lung Yuma also sat down with Mu Yin and said with a smile, This is our first time coming to the Blue Emperor's city. We will stay here for 2 days before leaving. Ling Yuxing said, I'm going to look for some food nearby. I've been fighting for a whole day. Watching the show for a whole day. I'm a little hungry. Qin Jiu brought the spiritual fruit pastries in front of Luo Yu. Little 7 eat. If it's sweet, then I won't feel sad anymore. Luo Yu felt that her eyes were a little warm and her chest was sore. What was originally missing did not return, but he did not feel cold and lonely. Because he still had the Xiao Yao school, and so many good senior brothers and senior sisters. Luo Yu grabbed a spirit fruit and sat down beside Mayan. She listened to the beautiful music while looking at the heaven-reaching halberd that was gradually disintegrating. She muttered softly, Yi Changfeng, What is my relationship with Lan Chushi? What's my relationship with you? Will we really never meet again? Wushang Palace. 5 flames flew over from afar and fell into Huang Fuzun's hands. Huang Fuzun showed a satisfied expression. There are 5 more puppets in Wushang Palace. Huh? His eyes suddenly widened, revealing an expression of disbelief. Chapter 3872. How could this be? How could Yi Nu's soul be stained with the young master's aura? Huang Fuzun was shocked for a while and then frowned slightly. Since they are stained with the young master's aura, they can't be puppets anymore. What a pity. There are 5 souls that I like so much. But soon, Huang Fuzun smiled. Forget it. Since you're protected by the young master, how about I give you a chance to reincarnate? Anyway, the gate of heaven is open. Maybe I can leave Wushang Palace soon. Thinking of this, Huang Fuzun waved his hand. The 5 flames flew out and disappeared in the darkness. Blue Emperor's camp. The 7 people of the Xiaoyao sect waited for 3 days and 3 nights beside the huge pit until the heaven-reaching halberd completely collapsed. Luo Yu finally gave up. He heaved a long sigh and suppressed the dull pain in his heart. He said with a smile, "Let's go back. I miss the warm bed in Carefree City." Yin Ruhan rubbed his head gently. "Okay, let's go back." Ling Yusheng, who had always been the most careful, suddenly exclaimed. He pointed at the silver halberd on Luo Yu's waist and said, "Xiao Qi, look at this halberd. Isn't it brighter? Are the cracks on it gone?" Luo Yu quickly picked up the pendant on his waist. Then, he found that the halberd was silver and beautiful. There was not even a crack on it. That's strange. When did the cracks disappear? Everyone looked at each other and shook their heads. Even Chu Moli couldn't tell why. But Luo Yu suddenly felt that the huge stone on his chest had disappeared. His body was indescribably relaxed. His heart seemed to be filled with hope and vitality again. "Come on, let's go back. We can only eat barbecue in this damn place. I'm so sick of it. How dare you say that? Don't you know who we are accompanying? Xiao Qi, are you complaining that my cooking is not good enough?" The laughter of the 7 people gradually faded away. The entire Blue Emperor's camp returned to peace. It also indicated that the war that decided the fate of the sky-floating island had finally come to an end. Carefree City. Because of the departure of Mu Yan's group of 7 and the Carefree Army, the entire Carefree City seemed deserted. Yi Qingfeng summoned his water qilin and used its skill, flooding Golden Mountain, which caused most of the buildings in the city to collapse. However, the cultivators in the city were not in the mood to rebuild. Especially when the ground shook, everyone's faces were filled with panic. From time to time, they would look at the sky, waiting for the moment when their fate would be pronounced. Could the Castellan and the 100,000 free army return safely? Would Imperial Preceptor Yi Qingfeng's scheme succeed? Would the floating island face a calamity? At the top of the 6 Stars Pagoda, Xiao Bao stood in front of the window with the fat rabbit in his arms, staring blankly at the horizon. The fat rabbit wiggled its furry body in his arms. She licked his hand with her pink tongue. Xiao Bao lowered his head and stroked the fat rabbit. "Bunny, I'm fine. Don't worry. Mother will be fine as well." Little Bao's expression suddenly changed. The next moment, the small figure had already disappeared. Uncle Wei ran. "What are you trying to do?" Xiao Bao spread his arms in front of Luo Yin Xiao. He looked at the person in front of him helplessly and with a headache. "Mother said that we can't disturb Marshal Granduncle." Chi Wen, who had just shouted at Li Wei ran, fell to the side. She was dizzy, as if she was drunk. Chapter 3873. It was obvious that he had been tampered with. Li Weiran looked at Xiao Bao with a smile that didn't seem like a smile. A dark light flashed in his eyes. "Little fellow, do you know what kind of people need to go against the heavens to change their fate? If you come into contact with such people for too long, even if you're the son of heaven, you'll still be tainted by bad luck." Just how much courage does Jun Mayan have to actually dare to directly involve herself in this kind of cause and effect? Xiao Bao frowned. He didn't really understand what Uncle Wei Ran was saying, but he was probably saying bad things about Grand Senior Master. Li Weiron's smile deepened. He slowly walked past Xiao Bao and towards the center of the array. Why don't I end him while he's at his weakest? This can also be considered as averting a disaster for you. Later, tell Mayan that there's no need to thank me too much. As he spoke, a black flame sprang up from his fingertips and was about to be flicked towards Luo Yunxiao. Absolutely not. Xiao Bao rushed over without hesitation and stood in front of Luo Yunxiao. The black flames were about to fall on Xiao Bao's head. However, his tiny body did not move at all. Those beautiful sapphire-like eyes stared straight at Li Weiran, without a trace of fear or cowardice. Li Weiran flung his sleeves. Just as the black flame was about to touch Xiao Bao, it dissipated in the air. How boring. His eyebrows twitch, bored to death as he says, Jun Machin, you're really like Diming Ju. More and more boring, more and more annoying. Hearing Li Weiran's harsh words, Xiao Bao was not angry at all. She only tightened her delicate little face and said as if it was a matter of course, Xiao Bao is Daddy's child. Of course he looks like Daddy. Li Weiran's mouth twitched as his gaze landed on Luo Yunxiao. After watching for a while, he suddenly laughed softly. Defy the heavens and change my fate? Perhaps it would be more interesting if he changed it. Either we die without a burial place, or we set off monstrous waves in the Xioshan continent. Just thinking about it makes me feel that the future won't be boring. I was really stupid just now. That's why I wanted to kill you now. Li Weiran seemed to have thought of something as he suddenly trembled with excitement. Xiao Bao couldn't help but want to roll his eyes. Uncle Wei Rant's illness acted up again, but he remembered that his father had said that he was the future successor of the polar domain. So he had to be dignified, calm, and like a little man, he had to protect his mother so that she wouldn't lose face, so he endured it. Little guy, when Mu Yin comes back, tell her that I've taken him away. Xiao Bao was shocked. Li Weiran had already grabbed Luo Yunxiao's shoulder. Almost at the same time, a faint light lit up under their feet, and the ground undulated like waves. Their figures were faintly discernible, as if they would disappear at any time. Xiao Bao recognized it. It was a teleportation array. Furthermore, it wasn't an ordinary teleportation formation, but a teleportation formation that only third martial uncle could use. Uncle Wei Ran, you can't. Mother asked me to protect martial granduncle. You can't take him away. With a thought, the Bixia sword was unsheathed and slashed at the feet of the two men. With a bang, the entire Six Stars Pagoda shook violently. The ground, which had been flowing like water, suddenly stopped moving and returned to its original state. Li Weiran's expression suddenly turned cold, but the smile on his lips became even more bewitching. His eyes were suffused with a cold light. Little guy, you want to fight with me? He didn't know why, but he felt very unhappy. This little guy kept calling him uncle, but because of a martial granduncle, he made a move against him. Sure enough, Diming Ju's son wasn't a good thing either. Chapter 3874. Who knew that in the next moment, Xiao Bao would say with a taut face, Xiao Bao won't fight with Uncle Wei Ran. If Uncle Wei Ran hurts Xiao Bao, the heart-piercing life-extending curse will kill Uncle Wei Ran. Li Weiran, kids are so troublesome. Ah, Grandmaster, you're awake. Li Weiran was complaining when he heard Xiao Bao scream and jump in front of Luo Yunxiao. Luo Yunxiao reached out and patted his head before turning her head to look around. The seven people were nowhere to be seen. Xiao Bao hurriedly said, Mother and the others went to Londi City to save Elder Martial Uncle and Seventh Martial Uncle. Grandmaster, are you all right? Xiao Bao and Luo Yunxiao didn't meet many times. However, he liked this martial granduncle very much. The reason was simple. Grandmaster was very powerful, just a little bit weaker than father. Martial granduncle was very good-looking and was only slightly inferior to father. Grandmaster didn't speak much every time he saw him, but he would give him many things. His gaze toward Xiao Bao and mother was very gentle. Most importantly, martial granduncle had saved mother, martial uncles, and martial uncles many times. So, when his mother said that someone needed to stay here to look after Grandmaster, he agreed to stay. Now that he thought about it, it was fortunate that he stayed. Otherwise, Uncle Wei Ran was so disobedient and would definitely cause trouble for Grandmaster. Luo Yinxiao nodded her head lightly and looked at Li Weiran with a surprised expression. Li Weiran looked back at him with a smile that wasn't a smile, his eyes filled with interest. Luo Yinxiao retracted his gaze and said gently, "Xiao Bao, Grandmaster's going back to Xiaoxin continent. When your mother comes back, tell her." Xiao Bao listened carefully to Grandmaster's next words. But Luo Yunxiao was silent for a long time and laughed softly, shaking his head. "No need to say anything. Just tell them I'm fine and that I'm going back to Xiaoxin continent." If fate was kind to him, there might be a chance for them to meet again. If heaven and earth were heartless and fate was like this, then there was no point in saying goodbye. It would just be sad. Xiao Bao nodded, not really understanding. For some reason, seeing Grandmaster like this, Xiao Bao felt a sense of separation and worry. "Grandmaster, are you all right?" Luo Yunxiao calmly comforted him. Suddenly, something flickered on his waist, and he quickly took it out. "Master, Yunxiao, hurry back." Almost as soon as he finished speaking, the surrounding air distorted, and a vortex appeared. Then, Luo Yunxiao's figure disappeared into the vortex, just like that. "Martial Granduncle," Xiao Bao cried out in alarm and wanted to rush over to hold him back. However, someone grabbed the back of his collar and lifted him up. "Little fellow, do you want to die? You even dare to touch the formless Prajna spin. Aren't you afraid of being torn to pieces?" Xiao Bao was also shocked by the ripple from the whirlpool. "Uncle Wei Ran, do you know what happened to Grandmaster?" Li Weiran smirked. "Don't worry, I won't die. It was just that he was instantly pulled to the Xiaoxin continent by the teleportation technique. But it was just that he didn't expect the other party to use the shape-shifting transposition technique to be the formless Prajna void. Could it be that Mu Yan's martial uncle was related to Debi Temple? Things were getting more and more interesting. Thinking of this, Li Weiran couldn't help but feel restless. He reached out and carelessly rubbed Xiao Bao's head. "Little fellow, I'm leaving." Chapter 3875. Xiao Bao hurriedly pulled on his sleeve. "Uncle Wei Ran. TSK. Kids are really troublesome." Meeting those watery, icy blue eyes, Li Wei Ran had no choice but to stop. "What else do you want?" Xiao Bao pursed his lips. After a while he said, "Uncle Wei Ran, have you seen my father? What is he doing? Why doesn't he come to see Xiao Bao and Mother?" Hearing this question, Li Wei Ran's face darkened. This little guy is doing this on purpose. What's wrong with asking him? Asking him what Di Mingju is doing. What is he going to see Di Mingju for? To kill him? Li Wei Ran took a deep breath, a sinister smile on his face. "Do you really want to know what your father is doing?" Xiao Bao nodded heavily. Li Wei Ran's smile deepened. "Little guy, there's no harm in telling you. Nether Region and Demon Region are working together to attack Polar Region. Di Mingju is fighting against Demon Lord Jun Shirtian and Nether Region Lord Wuji. He's going to die soon." Little Bao's face instantly turned ghastly pale, and his little lips started to tremble. "No, Daddy. Daddy," Li Wei Ran sighed, curled his finger, and flicked Xiao Bao's head. "Little guy, do you have a brain? If Di Mingju died so easily, I wouldn't have planned for hundreds of years to kill him. I'm just joking with you." Xiao Bao's cheeks puffed up, glaring at Li Wei Ran. "Uncle Wei Ran is too bad. He always likes to play with people. One day, I'll definitely play with him." Li Wei Ran smiled faintly. "Is it because you know he's your biological father that you care about Di Mingju?" Xiao Bao blinked, revealing a puzzled expression. He had always treated Di Mingju as his only father. However, the precocious him was also clear. Xiao Bao's biological father wasn't his father. Even his mother didn't know who Xiao Bao's biological father was. Seeing Xiao Bao's confused expression, Li Wei Ran paused, then couldn't help but laugh. "Uncle Wei Ran, what are you laughing at?" Li Wei Ran, on the other hand, laughed louder and louder. His expression was unspeakably carefree and gloating. Xiao Bao frowned and thought like a little adult. Uncle Weiran is going crazy again. Li Weiran laughed enough before saying meaningfully, "So Diming Ju still hasn't confessed, ah? So there are things in this world that he is afraid of." Xiaobao asked doubtfully, "What does Daddy want to confess?" "It's nothing." Li Weiran smirked. He bent down slightly and got closer to Xiaobao. A malicious smile blossomed on his face. "It's meaningless to say it now. I'm still waiting for the day when I can see Diming Ju begging for mercy on his knees." Xiaobao's little face turned pale, and he said anxiously, "Why is Daddy living a life worse than death? Is Father injured?" "Li Weiran, is this how you threaten my son when I'm not around?" A clear and melodious voice rang out. Then a white-robed figure floated in from the window and pulled Xiaobao into his arms. Xiaobao hugged her, his little body trembling. He sounded like he was about to cry. "Mother," Uncle Weiran said, "that Daddy fool." Mu Yan's heart ached as she held his little face, wiping away the tears on his face. "Is he lying to you?" She coldly glanced at Li Weiran and said in a bad mood, "You still haven't seen through it? This guy likes to shoot off the top of his head, wishing for the whole world to be in chaos. You can only understand half of the words that come out of his mouth." Chapter 38:76. Only then did Xiao Bao heave a sigh of relief. But he had been scared by Li Weiran several times and hadn't seen his father for a long time. He was already worried, so his little face was still a little pale. Seeing Mu Yin now, grievances and worries flooded his mind. Xiao Bao couldn't help but hug Mu Yan's neck and bury his face in her neck, refusing to look at Li Weiran. Li Weiran's smile was bright. His eyebrows and eyes seemed to emit a flirtatious charm. "Mu Yin really knows me well." "Stop." Mu Yin interrupted him and smiled. "Li Weiran, thank you for always protecting Xiao Bao here. Now you can go back." Xiao Bao froze and couldn't help but raise his head, looking at Mu Yin and Li Weiran in surprise. "Mother said that Uncle Weiran stayed here to protect him?" Li Weiran couldn't help but grit his teeth. "Are you dreaming?" Mu Yin ignored him and touched Xiao Bao's head. "Hurry up and thank your Uncle Weiran." He even nodded. "You're really becoming more and more like an uncle." Xiao Bao's eyes were sparkling. He jumped down from Mu Yan's arms and walked towards Li Weiran. But just as he took a step, Li Weiran's figure rippled like water and disappeared. Xiao Bao was stunned for a long time before he couldn't help but laugh. Uncle Weiran was really at Sundara. Little Master returned to the Xiaoxian continent. Hearing Xiao Bao's story, Mu Yin was deep in thought and felt a little uneasy. She didn't know what kind of array it was to go against the heavens and change fate. But before leaving Liberty City to save Big Brother and Xiao Qi, Mu Yin had returned to Hexa Pagoda to check on Luo Yunxiao's situation. At that time, she noticed that Little Master seemed to have become a lot weaker. Would he really be fine if he returned to the Xiaoxian continent under such circumstances? Also, Li Weiran said that the demon race and the Nether Realm joined forces to attack the polar domain. Was that true? Mu Yan's finger lightly pressed on the void spirit ring. The energy waves coming from the ring were stable and normal. Did that mean that Diming Ju was very safe now? "Mother, Daddy will be fine, right?" Mu Yan bent down and kissed his forehead. Of course, how could Daddy be fine? If only she could be a little stronger and advance her cultivation a little faster. That would be great. How she wants to immediately ascend to the Xiaoxian continent and go to Diming Ju's side. Xiaoxian continent, the border between the polar domain and the nether domain. 10,000 years ago, this place used to be a bustling city. However, a great battle had turned all the pavilions into ruins. Blood spilled all over the ground, and countless skeletons were buried deep underground. Year after year, the wars between the polar domain, the demon race, and the nether realm usually took place on this land. More and more corpses were piling up. Slowly, this piece of land began to be shrouded in a deathly aura, and not a single blade of grass grew. Thus, the people of the Xiaoxian continent called this land the ancient battlefield of death. At this moment, the battle on the ancient battlefield of death was about to start. Compared to the allied forces of the Nether region and the Infernal region, The polar domain clearly didn't have the advantage in numbers. Wuji stood on the divine flying beast, the white phoenix, and looked down at the man in front of him who he had hated for hundreds of years. Ju, when you crippled my son, did you ever expect that your polar domain would end up like this today? His voice was filled with hatred, but his eyes were shining with fanatical excitement. Yue, the only son he valued, was destroyed. Naturally, he felt pain and resentment. Chapter 3877. But compared to the unification of the Nether Realm, his wrath over the destruction of his first son is nothing. What's more, he doesn't only have one son, Yue. Except for Yue, the others aren't born of his official wife, Fuyushu. Their talents and favor are completely incomparable to Yue's. However, Wuji reckons that he can still live for at least another few thousand years. At that time, even if he's an idiot, he'll still be able to cultivate him. And to kill Ju and take the territory of the polar domain for himself. This is the only opportunity that comes once in a blue moon. Ju still hasn't spoken. Han Yi already sneers, his face full of ridicule. Wuji, have you forgotten the appearance of being beaten by my Junshang on the floating island? I still remember the scene of Domain, Lord Yin's sorry figure fleeing at that time. What? Now that you've latched onto the demon race's thigh, you dare to bully our Junshang like a fox exploiting the tiger's might? Wuji's complexion becomes incomparably unsightly in a split second. Possessing Yue and being beaten up by Ju is simply his greatest shame and humiliation. But he also knows that he's not Ju's opponent by himself. So Wuji turns his head, looking at the black-clothed man beside him, exuding a biting cold air. Demon Lord, are you going to let those little bastards of the polar domain humiliate us like this? Junsher Tian still hasn't spoken. Tian, he is already shouting loudly. How come I didn't hear the polar domain humiliating us demon race? They even compare us to their thighs. TSK, TSK, TSK. Those idiots of the polar domain must have had some discerning eyes this time. Tianhe's words received strong approval from Yao Dao, Shuejie, and the others. The demon race shouts in unison. Long live the demon lord! Long live the demon lord! The atmosphere is joyous and harmonious. Wuji almost spits out a mouthful of old blood. Demon Lord, don't forget, what is the purpose of us leading the army here today? Wuji says through gritted teeth, if we want to destroy the polar domain, the first thing we have to do is to join hands and kill Ju. Jun Shurtian coldly glances at him. This lord still doesn't need your guidance. Right at this moment, Elder Chang's flustered and exasperated voice came from the polar domain. Minwei, come out. Standing behind Jun Shurtian, Elder Minwei coughed lightly, walked out slowly, and bowed to Elder Chong. Long time no see. Elder Chong, see my ass. Elder Chong, who is usually cultured and refined, couldn't help but curse. What did you promise me back then? When the hidden abyss was attacked by the poltergeist ghosts, it was my family's lord who risked his life to seal the crack caused by the collapse of the sky pillar. He is also my family's polar domain's future sage. Cough. In short, do you dare to say that your demon race doesn't owe my polar domain tens of thousands of lives? When we separated above the hidden abyss, we clearly agreed that the demons and the polar domain would mind their own business as much as possible. Now, you actually joined forces with the Nether Realm to attack my polar domain. Is this how you demons repay kindness with enmity? Are you shameless? These words caused Min Wei's face to turn pale. The people of the Devil Clan were also somewhat unable to lift their heads. The main reason was that during the collapse of the heavens back then, there were indeed many people in the Demon Clan who were indebted to the Polar Domain and Dabii Temple. Now, it's only been a few months, and they've already given their saviors a blow. It's indeed a bit unjustifiable. Min Wei coughed lightly and said, "Didn't I say I'll do my best? I try my best, but if I couldn't do it, then there's nothing I can do. Moreover, This can't be blamed on your monarch being thick-headed. Chapter 3878. You won't agree to a single one of our devil race's requests. Whatever the honorable demon wants is naturally of utmost importance. Since I can't get it, I can only snatch it. What do the devil race want? What do they seek? The upper echelons of the polar domain and Jun Shirtian's trusted aides were all clear about this. The first was the universe mirror. The second one is Medicine King Han Chujio. But the problem was that these two things couldn't be given away by the polar domain no matter what. Han Chujio was hit by a vicious curse many years ago. Since then, she couldn't leave the Medicine King Hall. And the clone also could not be too far away from the Medicine King Hall or leave for too long. As for the universe mirror, it was the only spatial treasure of the polar domain. How could it easily leave the outside world? The only thing the polar domain can agree to is for Jun Shirtian to go to the polar domain and see Han Chujio or use the cosmos mirror. But the dignified leader of a realm had to venture deep into the enemy's hinterland. How could the demons accept this? What they hated the most was being threatened and restrained. The fiend race believed that the strong were respected. Whatever they wanted, they just had to snatch it. As a result, things had developed to their current state. Minwei still wanted to say something. Jun Shirtian interrupted him coldly. If the Emperor thinks that my demon clan owes you, then in the battle later, my demon clan will not retaliate for an hour. That way, we can be considered to be even, right? In a battle that involved tens of thousands of spirit cultivators and demonic cultivators, the demonic cultivators didn't even fight back for an hour. Wasn't that no different from courting death? The people of Polar Domain and Nether Domain were all stunned. However, the group of people in the Fiend race were all cheering, not even half an objection. In Wuji was about to go crazy. This group of idiots of the Devil race. In the end, did they still want to start a war with the Polar Domain? He actually said that he wouldn't retaliate for an hour. Wouldn't that mean that their Nether Domain had to go against the Polar Domain alone? In Wuji said in a cold voice, Demon Lord, you'd best think carefully before you speak. If you don't retaliate for an hour, do you want to consign the demon race to eternal damnation? Demon Lord, please look at the bigger picture. Tianhe said angrily, my demon race has always believed in an eye for an eye for an eye. Not retaliating within an hour means that we owe the Polar Domain a favor. How are you not considering the bigger picture? Also, In Wuji, who do you think you are? Who are you to teach our demon lord a lesson? In Wuji was almost seething with anger. The elders of the Nether Domain also had ashen faces. He knew that the demons were unreliable, but he didn't expect them to be unreliable to this extent. Now, they were all wondering whether it was right or wrong for the Nether Realm to start this war. In Wuji took a deep breath and was about to speak to Jun Shirtian. In the distance, Di Mingju, who's been spinning the ring on his hand without saying a word, suddenly disappears. When he reappeared, he was already hovering high above the allied forces of the Nether region and the Demon region. Di Mingju looked down at Jun Shirtian and In Wuji, coldly saying, Bin Jun is very busy. I don't have time to listen to your nonsense. Jun Shirtian, In Wuji, go ahead and join forces. See if this lord will be afraid of you. This cocky brat. At this moment, not to mention In Wuji, even Jun Shirtian's eyes were suffused with a strong desire to fight. In his eyes, Di Mingju, who has just turned 1,000 years old, is only a fledgling rising star. Even if Di Mingju's cultivation has already reached the immortal emperor level, even surpassing the current him, this will not change. Jun Shirtian's figure suddenly disappeared. The next moment, he already appeared in front of Di Mingju, sneering. Even when Di Beixian was alive, he didn't dare to be arrogant in front of this lord. Chapter 3879. Di Mingju's expression didn't change. Di Beixian is Di Beixian. Ben Jun is Ben Jun. Jun Shirtian laughed. A trace of admiration flashed across his eyes. All right, then let me see how much real talent you have. As he spoke, In Wuji also came to Jun Shirtian's side. He looks at Di Mingju with a lot more coldness and hatred. If he had Di Mingju's talent, how could the Netherworld region be like this today? They had been trampled underfoot by the demon race and the polar domain. They didn't even put him, a dignified region lord, in their eyes. If it was when the Netherworld Saint Emperor moved unhindered, Di Mingju would be nothing but a fart. Jun Shirtian was nothing. It was a pity that there was no successor in the Netherrealm. The only one with awe-inspiring talent who could inherit the Netherine sacred flame was. When he thought of that unfilial son that caused him to be unable to eat or sleep in peace, a wave of agitation surged into Wuji's heart. He forcefully suppresses his emotions, sneering, Di Mingju, today I will settle old and new accounts with you. Whoosh! A terrifying pressure suddenly emanated from the three of them. The demon race and the Netherrealm army were so close that they retreated in fear. Only Min Wei, Tianhe, a few others, and Wuji's trusted elders remained. On the polar domain side, Elder Chong leads Han Yi, Ying Mei, and Xing Lang, and hurries over to support the formation. Everyone knew that a battle of the century was about to break out. But at this moment, a red light flashes from Di Mingju's waist. Although it was not dazzling, it immediately attracted Jun Shirtian's attention, because as the light flickered, he felt as if the blood in his body was boiling. Jun Shirtian could not help but stop releasing his pressure and look down. When he sees what's hanging on Di Mingju's waist, his eyes widen in disbelief. He cried out in alarm, Demon Core Blood Jade. Jun Shirtian suddenly raises his head to look at Di Mingju. How can you have a Monster Core Blood Jade on you? The most extraordinary thing is that the Monster Core Blood Jade on Di Mingju's waist unexpectedly has the aura of a monster core connected to his bloodline. How is this possible? Di Mingju caresses the vermilion jade on his waist. His hand was scalding hot. Something in Zhu Yuzhong seemed to be beating violently, as if it was being summoned by something. He was desperately trying to flee towards Jun Shirtian. Mind's words unconsciously echo in Di Mingju's ears. I didn't ask you to wear this demon blood core jade to find Xiao Bao's biological father. Instead, I want to find Jun Shiyuan. I heard that the demon core blood jade is mixed with the blood of the demon race. You should be able to get close to the demon race in the Xiaoxian continent, right? As long as it neared Jun Shiyuan, the demon core blood jade would sense it. At that time, I will be able to find him. The demon core blood jade reacted. Furthermore, the one who reacted was actually Jun Shirtian. Di Mingju's eyes are firmly fixed on Jun Shirtian, and he almost loses his composure and cries out in alarm. Could it be that Jun Shirtian is Mayan's biological father, Jun Shiyuan? How is this possible? Jun Shirtian is even more out of control than Di Mingju. In a flash, he arrives in front of Di Mingju, reaching out to grab the vermilion jade on his waist. Di Mingju's reaction is also extremely fast. He took a step back and retreated a few steps. Jun Shirtian snaps. Return the demon core blood jade to me. Di Mingju sneers. This vermilion jade is a keepsake from Ben Jun's fiancé. Why should I give it to you? As soon as the words come out, both of them stare blankly. An unimaginable thought flashes through their minds. Chapter 3880. Jun Shirtian said after a long while, You said that this demon core blood jade was given to you by your fiancé? Who is she and where is she now? Di Mingju also stares at him, not answering but asking, What does this demon core blood jade have to do with you? Answer me first. Answer my question first. In Wuji, everyone who was waiting for the battle of the century to begin. We've already taken off our pants, and you guys are actually chatting. In Wuji said angrily, Demonic Lord, why are you wasting your breath on him? Once the fight is over, I'll be able to smell out any problems. Jun Shirtian's complexion is ashen. He looks Di Mingju up and down, the words a gift from his fiancée repeatedly echoing in his mind. His eyes are critical and cold. Di Mingju also caresses the hot vermilion jade on his waist. Remembering the conjecture in his heart, His complexion alternates between green and white. The two of them actually ignored Enwuji. This caused Enwuji to be on the verge of exploding. A strong killing intent flashes through his eyes. A black light flashes in his hand, and he attacks Dimingju. Dimingju doesn't even spare him a glance. Crackling sounds of thunder and lightning could be heard from his palm. Then, an almost invisible black, long sword shot out from his hand and slashed in the air. Enwuji's expression changed greatly, and he retreated several steps before stabilizing himself. And the hidden weapon he had just used to attack Dimingju has already disintegrated into slag in a split second. Enwuji looked at Dimingju with shock and fear. He didn't expect this man to be so powerful. The difference between an immortal emperor and an immortal venerable was only one level, but it seemed to be a natural moat. The black longsword made a crackling sound in the air, then slowly changed shape, turning into a huge longsword. The edge of the long saber faced Enwuji, ready to fall at any moment. Enwuji had never felt the disparity between him and Dimingju as he did now. If this man wanted to kill him, he probably wouldn't even have the strength to fight back. The saber was about to fall. Enwuji hurriedly shouted at Jun Shirtian, "Demon Lord, what are you doing? Didn't our two domains gather here today to suppress the polar domain? Why haven't you joined hands with me to kill Dimingju?" Jun Shirtian takes a deep look at Dimingju, his brows tightly knit, as if he's thinking about something. A moment later, he suddenly turned around and returned to Min Wei's side, waving his hand impatiently. "Let's not fight for today." Dimingju also calmly lands on the ground. Elder Chong and the others hurriedly surrounded him. "Lord, what happened?" Dimingju says coldly, "We'll talk after we get back. You're not going to fight the demon race in the Nether Realm today." Dimingju's lips move, but he doesn't speak. What was there to fight? If the demon lord Jun Shirtian was really Mu Yan's biological father, that was his father-in-law. If he really killed someone, how would he explain it to Mu Yan? It was better to go back and sort out his thoughts first. "Demon lord, what happened? This subordinate seems to have heard you mention the monster core blood jade. What happened between you and the polar domain's sovereign lord?" Jun Shirtian said calmly, "Let's talk after we return to the camp." If he could, he really wanted to pull out a part of his soul and destroy it. Monster core blood jade. It turned out that he had actually left a monster core blood jade for his daughter back then. If he had known earlier, he only needed to follow the aura of the monster core, and he would have found it in at most a year and a half. Why would he need to waste so much effort? Chapter 3881. In the blink of an eye, the people of the polar domain and the devil domain have completely retreated. Each of them returned to their camps dozens of li away. Only Enwuji and the people of the nether realm were left in a mess. It was clearly a two-sided alliance attacking the other side. However, the nether realm was completely ignored. Domain Lord, what should we do?" Enwuji's face is gloomy, almost unable to suppress his outburst of emotions. Taking a few deep breaths, he coldly says, "Return to the camp. Polar Domain's camp." "Jun Shang, what happened? What were you talking about with Jun Shirtian before?" Dimingju and Jun Shirtian's conversation was through secret sound transmission. Except for the two of them, no one else could hear it. Even Enwuji, who was close at hand, could only vaguely hear the gist of it. This made the people of the polar domain scratching their hearts and lungs to know what happened. Dimingju moved his lips, seemingly wanting to say something. But thinking of Mu Yan's blessing, he swallowed back the words that were on the tip of his tongue. If Jun Shirtian was really Mu Yan's biological father, Jun Shiyuan, then he must wait for Mu Yan to come and recognize him. Especially Ning Yinxin's death. Dimingju knows that it's a knot in Mu Yan's heart. Before the matter is confirmed, he can't let too many people know for the time being. Jun Shang? Dimingju comes back to his senses and suddenly asks, "Elder Chong, do you know any news about the demon princess?" Elder Chong stares blankly. He doesn't understand why his Jun Shang suddenly mentioned the demon princess. He thinks for a moment. This old man has only heard Minwei mention it a few times. The specific situation is not clear. The demon princess seems to be the child of Jun Shitian, who was lost in the outside world for several years. But it seems that even Minwei and the others don't know the specifics. Di Ming Ju suddenly says, "When did Jun Shitian disappear?" This. Elder Chong stares blankly. This subordinate doesn't know the specifics. I only know the date of his return, because that was also the day of the great shuffle of the demon race. The previous demon lord was beheaded by Jun Shitian in public. Thousands of demons returned to their hearts, establishing the status of the demon domain, polar domain, and netherrealm. Hearing Elder Chong say the date, Di Ming Ju's heart thumps. This world almost coincided with the time when Ning Yinxin was trapped in the Hell Rebirth Array. Could it be that Jun Shitian was really Jun Shiyuan? Elder Chong doesn't see Di Ming Ju's bewilderment and continues to speak. Speaking of which, Honored Demon can be said to value and dote on this daughter very much. He hasn't even seen her yet, but he's already prepared a lot of treasures for his daughter, waiting to find her and give her as a dowry. But this is also normal. High-grade devils are fundamentally different from us humans. They're born from the gathering of hidden devilish chi, and they're born to be powerful and cruel. But it was precisely because of this that the rules of the heavenly Tao restricted them greatly. It was almost impossible for high-grade devilish beings to reproduce, and even if a devilish being and human were to conceive a child, it was extremely rare due to the favorable timing and geographical conditions. Ordinary high-level devils are already like this, not to mention Jun Shitian, the Devil Lord. When I first heard Minwei say that Jun Shitian had a daughter, I simply couldn't believe it. That's simply against the rules of the heavens and earth. It's no wonder that Jun Shitian and the entire demon race would attach so much importance to this princess. They didn't even buy the person, but they already found a son-in-law for the princess. I heard that even the 3 live stones engagement was set in order to find the whereabouts of the demon princess through the marriage contract. Chapter 3882. What did you just say? Elder Chang's long-winded words are interrupted by Di Ming Ju's fierce shout, scaring him so much that he almost shivers. Jun Juanshang, I said so much just now. You're referring to which sentence? Di Ming Ju has a calm expression on his face. His hands are tightly gripping the vermilion jade at his waist, almost crushing it. Damn it! How could he have forgotten? If Jun Shitian is Jun Shiyuan, then Mayan is the demon princess. Doesn't that mean that the 3 live stone on Mu Yin was signed by Jun Shitian? And the one who made the engagement with Mu Yin was none other than Luo Yinshao. My lord, what happened? Why do you look so pale? Is that demon princess related to you in any way? By the way, did the demon Venerable interrogate you about your refusal to marry the demon princess? Star Wolf smiled coldly and said, The fiend race's fools truly think too highly of themselves. What kind of talent and status does Jun Shang have? How could he take a fancy to that princess of theirs who hasn't even shown her face? Han Yi follows up. Could it be that because Jun Shang isn't willing to marry their princess, the honored demon lord joined forces with the netherworld region to attack our polar domain? This is too tasteless. Humph. Jun Shitian and the others should stop dreaming. If our Jun Shang says he won't marry, then he won't. Even if they make a scene, that princess of theirs won't have the chance to become the mistress of our polar domain. Star Wolf and Han, ye haven't finished echoing each other's words, when suddenly, Di Ming Ju coldly glares at them like a knife. That gaze was truly one of anger, depression, and irritation, as well as a desire to kill. Han Yi and Xing Lang are scared stiff, and their voices come to a screeching halt. Jun Shang Yu, what happened to you? Did we say something wrong? Di Ming Ju, all of you get out. Ben Jun wants to be alone. Demon Camp. Demon Sovereign, I seem to have sensed the aura of the demon core blood jade just now. As soon as they enter the camp, Minwei immediately chased everyone out and asked with a serious expression. Jun Shirtion took a deep breath and told him everything that happened just now. Minwei was dumbstruck when he heard this and was unable to recover his senses for a long time. Demon Lord. Ew. You mean to say that the Polar Domain Sovereign Lord knows our demon race's princess, and the two of them are engaged? Jun Shirtion paced back and forth in the room, his expression fluctuating between gloomy and clear. I don't know, but I'm certain that the Monster Core Blood Jade was made from the fusion of my Monster Core fragment and my Essence Blood. I can even feel the residual presence of a soul and a spirit within the Monster Core Blood Jade. Minwei was stunned for a long time before he could not help but exclaim, no wonder the things that Zhongliren had predicted were all indirectly related to the Polar Domain. Whether it is Han Chujiu or the Heaven and Earth Mirror. Even when the princess was engaged, Zhongli also hinted that we should talk to the Polar Domain. Could it be that Zhongli Darren had already guessed that he could only find the princess through Di Mingju? Wait, if the princess is already Di Mingju's fiancée, then what should we do about the engagement we set for the princess? Jun Shirtion waved his hand and impatiently said, let's not talk about this matter first. At worst, we can just marry both of them. Cough, 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 cough. Minwei almost choked to death on his own saliva. What do you mean marry both of them? Demon Lord, aren't you afraid that Di Mingju will overturn the entire demon race by saying this? Chapter 3883. He was the exalted extreme domain sovereign lord. It was one thing for the princess to marry him, but they actually wanted him to share a wife with another man? Jun Shirtion looked at him coldly and sneered. All men in this world can have 3 wives and 4 concubines. Don't tell me my daughter doesn't have this ability. Yes, yes, yes. Naturally, the princess had it. She could sleep with any man in the world, and she could sleep with as many as she wanted. Ahem, but honorable demon, now is not the time to discuss how many consorts the princess will marry. The most important thing now is to find the princess. Minwei wiped the sweat on his forehead and said with a dry smile, do you think we should pay a visit to the Polar Domain Sovereign Lord? Jun Shirtion shakes his head and says in a low voice, no need for the time being. First, send someone to investigate the identity of Di Mingju's fiancé. And that little fellow. Jun Shirtion's mind flashed with Xiao Bao's adorable face. His heart skipped a beat. Could it be that the little guy was his grandson? That was why he had a good impression of the little fellow when they first met. Minwei also guessed what was going on. For a moment, he was so excited that his face wrinkled with laughter. I was just saying that the little Gongzi is so cute. How could such a rigid place like the Polar Domain raise him? So the little lord is a child of our demon domain. He. If that's the case, isn't it only right and proper to bring him back to our hidden abyss? Jun Shirtion forcefully suppressed the excitement in his heart and said in a cold voice, now, the war between us and the Polar Domain is on the verge of breaking out, and there's also the Nether Domain eyeing us covetously from the side. Before we confirm it, don't act rashly and don't spread this news. Demon Lord, don't worry. Even if it's for the princess's safety, I won't dare to let the news leak. Minwei bowed in acknowledgement. Then, he couldn't help but frown. But if we really investigate the relationship between the princess and the Polar Domain, then this battle will have to end without a conclusion. I'm afraid that the Nether Domain won't be willing to let it go. Jun Shirtion sneered. So what if you don't want to give up? With just Wuji that trash, could it be that he dares to oppose the Fiend race and the Polar Domain? Netherrealm main camp. Clanking sounds came from the main hall. At this time, the army of the Netherrealm was stationed in the palace formed by the Sumeru ring space. The Netherrealm and the new Elder Fu were naturally in the main hall. Damn Di Mingju, damn Jun Shirtion, how dare you play with my netherworld? Wuji smashed a bunch of things, but his face was still ashen. The veins on his forehead bulged, and he almost couldn't suppress his emotions that were about to explode. The elders of the Netherrealm looked at each other and saw the helplessness and sighs in each other's eyes. The Netherrealm was currently weak and was unable to contend against the demon race or the Netherrealm alone. In the end, their domain master is still far inferior to Jun Shirtion and Diming Ju in terms of strength, and the Netherrealm had no successor. Yu Chun and the other elders could not help but shake their heads at the thought of the young lord who had now become a cripple. That was much worse than Yin Wuji. The Netherrealm did have some good seedlings with heaven-defying talents. But as it happened, Yu Chun could not help but shake his head. Others might not know of the existence of the First Highness, but they, the elders of the Netherrealm, were very clear about it. At such a young age, he had already inherited the third rank, Dark In Holy Flame. He was also the son-in-law candidate that the demon lord Jun Shirtion had taken a fancy to. If he was properly nurtured, in time, he might really be able to recreate the glory of the Holy Emperor of the Netherworld. Chapter 3884. But Yuchen also knew that was impossible. To say that Yin Wuji hated His Highness to the bone and feared him to the extreme would not be an exaggeration. He couldn't think of a way to kill His Highness because of all kinds of external restrictions. How could he hand over Netherrealm to him? Yuchen was lost in thought when he heard someone asking Wuji, Domain Lord, if the demons really renege and withdraw their troops, what should we do? Looking at today's situation, this was very likely. Jun Shirtion clearly didn't put the people of Netherrealm in his eyes at all. On the contrary, he was chatting happily with the Polar Domain sovereign. Yin Wuji was already half dead with anger. Hearing this, he looked at the person who spoke, as if he wanted to kill someone. I want Diming Ju dead. This time, I will make Diming Ju pay for my Er's life. The implication was that even if the demons withdrew their troops, Netherrealm wouldn't retreat. But what was the difference between this and seeking death? The elder below hesitated. Domain Lord, with just the military strength of our Netherrealm, it is absolutely impossible to contend with Polar Domain alone. In terms of the strongest fighting strength, Polar Domain's sovereign could crush their Domain Lord. Yin Wuji's eyes were bloodshot. His body couldn't help but tremble. I will go find Jun Shirtion now. I want to ask the demons, going back on their words like this, do they still want to have a marriage alliance with our Netherrealm alliance? Yes. I almost forgot. There is still a marriage agreement between the demons and our Netherrealm's Highness. That demon princess must not be able to marry. That's why she insisted on sending her to our Netherrealm. Domain Lord, if you use this as a threat, I'm sure the demon Venerable won't dare to disagree. The others also nodded in agreement. There was even someone who suggested, Priest Luyun once prophesied that the person who marries the demon princess can stir up the situation of the world. Now that the young master is seriously ill, maybe we can transfer the marriage agreement to him, and he will be able to recover. Domain Lord, why don't you take this opportunity to mention it to the demon Venerable? I think the demon Venerable won't disagree. The corner of Yu Chen's mouth twitched, wanting to remind them that back in the hidden abyss, the demon Venerable Jun Shirtion despised Yin Yuani's cowardly and stupid appearance. But the words were at the tip of his tongue. He swallowed them back. Yin Wuji, on the other hand, was moved by the words of the people below him. An excited light shone in his eyes. Without further delay, he flew out of the demon clan's territory. However, he was rejected by Jun Shirtion. Of door. Outside. Got it. The person who replied to him was Devilblade. There was a playful smile on his handsome face. I'm sorry, Protectorate Lord Yin. Our demon lord is in seclusion to comprehend Tao. Please forgive me for not being able to get close to you. Yin Wuji said angrily. I have important matters to discuss with the demon Venerable. Fiendish Blade's expression did not change. Nothing is more important than the order of the demon Venerable. Territorial Lord Yin, please. Bastard. The rage that Yin Wuji had been suppressing for an entire day finally exploded at this moment. Who do you think you are? How dare you look down on me? Today, I will let all of you devils know what it means to be superior. Before he finished speaking, a powerful spiritual force, accompanied by a blue-black flame, soared into the sky. The demon soldiers who were standing to the side felt the immense power contained in the flames and retreated. That was the netherworld fire that had been passed down from generation to generation in the netherworld, although it was not as powerful as the netherworld holy flame. In the three realms, there were very few people who could rival it. Fiendish Blade's expression became extremely serious. He raised his hand in the air. Chapter 3885. A blood-red saber that was as long as two people appeared in his hand. All of you retreat. The demon race soldiers retreated in response. Demon Blade's face was slightly pale, and there were beads of sweat sliding down his forehead. But there was no fear on his face as he walked step by step towards Enwuji. Even if he knew he was no match, he would not retreat even half a step, because the demon race believed in strength, bravery, and advancing courageously. However, at this time, Enwuji's expression changed greatly. He suddenly turned to look at the southern horizon. His face was filled with disbelief, and his body unconsciously began to tremble. The netherworld fire that was originally blooming behind him also disappeared without a trace. Demon Blade was surprised and followed his gaze. There didn't seem to be anything special. No. It was clearly noon with the scorching sun in the sky, but there was a red glow at the end of the southern horizon. And as time passed, the red glow became more and more dazzling, so much so that the blood red seemed to be dyed with a faint black chi. It was as if there was a ball of fire burning the sky and clouds until they were all burned to ashes. Enwuji's face was filled with shock, and there were beads of sweat rolling down his forehead. His lips trembled as he muttered, "Impossible! Impossible! How could he succeed?" The doubt in Demon Blade's heart grew deeper. What had happened in the red glow that caused Enwuji, who had always valued his reputation, to lose his composure in the territory of the demon race? Demon Blade opened his mouth to ask, who would have guessed that Enwuji would instantly disappear? Then, in less than 2 hours, the army of the Nether region that was stationed in the northwest corner of the ancient battlefield of death had collectively departed. Even the huge and luxurious palace had completely disappeared in an instant. "It's really strange," Sky River said suspiciously. It was clearly them who were clamoring to quickly start a war with the polar domain, and now they are fleeing as if they're on fire. Are those idiots of the Nether region crazy? Demon Blade frowned and couldn't help but look at the southern horizon. At this time, the scene of the burning clouds had already disappeared. Everything was calm, as usual. However, Yao Dao felt that something must have happened in the Nether realm. Otherwise, Enwuji would not have revealed such a horrified expression, and he would not have led his troops away in such a hurry. Yao Dao told him about Enwuji's performance. Everyone couldn't help but reveal puzzled expressions. Min Wei frowned. "Demon Venerable, now that the Nether domain has retreated, what should we do? Do you still want to start a war with the polar domain?" For a moment, everyone's gaze was focused on Jun Shirtian. The devil race was warlike. They would definitely not be willing to run away with their tails between their legs before the battle even started. However, the demon race also respected the strong, and they were the most loyal. Therefore, as long as their devil lord Jun Shirtian gave an order, all the devil race would obey without hesitation. Jun Shirtian's face was ice cold as he frowned. He looked at the polar domain's camp with eyes brimming with killing intent. The bloodthirsty genes in Tianhe and the others were also stirred. He was waiting for Jun Shirtian to say the word kill. However, after waiting for a moment, Jun Shirtian gritted his teeth and said, "Pass down the order, retreat." What? Just now, the Devil Lord's face was clearly filled with killing intent. Why did he say retreat instead of attack? Chapter 3886. They didn't hear it wrong, right? Tianhe and the others looked at each other and saw the suspicion in each other's eyes. Only Min Wei was well aware. Did the Demon Lord want to kill the Polar Domain Emperor? Of course he wanted to. He had been looking for his precious daughter for so long, but he didn't even get to see her face before she was taken by the pig opposite him. How could the demon lord not be angry? What's more, although the little Gongzi was cute, but in terms of age, when the princess was still very young, the Polar Domain Emperor had already, although the demon race had always been casual, daring to love and hate. As long as they liked someone, no matter the age, race, or background difference, they would be together if they wanted to. But that was for others. How could his precious daughter be treated the same? The demon lord probably wanted to chop up the Polar Domain Emperor and feed him to the dogs. But he couldn't kill him, and if he wanted to find a princess's whereabouts, he might have to ask the Polar Domain Emperor for help. How could the demon lord be happy? Okay, I told you to pass the order, so do it. No need to talk so much nonsense. Min Wei patted Tiana's head and said snappily, "Get lost." He rolled his eyes and suddenly said, "Shueji, you stay." Looking at the charming woman in white with fiery red lips and bright eyes, standing in front of him, Min Wei nodded, then beckoned to her and whispered in her ear, "You go to the Polar Domain camp first and ask to see the Emperor. First like this, then like this." Shueji was confused at first, then her eyes became brighter and brighter. The smile on her face became more and more charming and captivating. When Minwei finished, Shueji giggled. "Elder Minwei, don't worry, Shueji will complete the task. There is no man in this world who can escape my Shueji's charm skill." When Shueji left, Jun Shurchen frowned and looked at Minwei. "You let Shueji seduce Di Mingju?" Minwei stroked his beard and said with a smile, "How can it be called seduction? This subordinate just let Shueji use all her means to find out the princess's information from the Polar Domain people." After a pause, his voice turned slightly cold, and he said with a light snort, "If the Polar Domain's sovereign lord can't even resist this little charm, how can he be worthy of the princess? When the time comes, you can kill him. I'm sure the princess won't have any objections." Normally, Minwei was always smiling like a Mithria Buddha. In the demon race, the one who had the best relationship with the Polar Domain was none other than him. But now that he's talking about slaughtering Di Mingju, there isn't the slightest ripple in his eyes. However, Jun Shurtian was not surprised at all, because this was the devil race. This was the true nature of the devil race. Love desires life, evil desires death. Minwei continued, "Of course, if the Polar Domain's sovereign lord passes the test, Shueji should also bring back some news about the princess. At that time, it will be easier for us to find the princess." He nodded. "That works too. If Di Mingju can't even pass this test." Jun Shurtian's lips curled into a cruel smile as he tightened his grip on the armrest. The sturdy metal armrest turned to dust in an instant. Polar Domain Camp. Jun Shang, the troops of the Netherworld realm have withdrawn. Hearing Han Ye's hurried report, Di Mingju raised his head, a rare expression of astonishment on his face. He thought that the demon race would withdraw their troops. He didn't expect that the first to withdraw would actually be the Netherworld realm. In Wuji was gnashing his teeth. No matter how you look at it, it's impossible for them to be willing to give up so quickly. Chapter 3887. Ingmei bowed and said, "According to the reports of the scouts hidden in the Nether region, it seems that In Wuji's attitude suddenly changed greatly. His face was full of panic, and he forcefully ordered the army to retreat. Perhaps something has happened in the Nether Domain Imperial Court." Di Mingju looks at the horizon in the distance, where the sky has already begun to gradually darken. He faintly wrinkles his brows. Subconsciously, he held the void spirit ring between his fingers and slowly spun it. For some reason, he had a bad feeling in his heart. But if something happened to the Nether realm, it should be a good thing for him, shouldn't it? "My lord, what should we do?" Star Wolf excitedly said. "The Nether realm has already retreated. The demons alone are absolutely not a match for our Polar Domain. Should we make the first move to gain the upper hand? Before the Nether realm's army returns, we'll first utterly defeat the demons." Before he could finish his words, he sees his family's Jun Shang coldly squinting at him like he's looking an idiot. Starwolf's voice paused, and he said blankly, "Lord, what is it? Did I say something wrong?" At this moment, someone outside the house reported the demon race's envoy, Lady Shuejai, requests an audience. Everyone in the room was startled. The two armies clashed, and a great battle was imminent. The demon race was not like the Nether Realm, who liked to play tricks, so why did they send an envoy at this time? Only Diming-ju is well aware. At this time, Jun Shirtian could no longer hold back. He wanted to inquire about the origin of the demon core blood jade. But he promised Mayan that before she meets Jun Shiyuan, he won't reveal her identity and whereabouts. At this time, he naturally had no interest in dealing with some devil race emissary. Just as he was about to refuse, he could not help but hesitate. Although Mu Yin has a grudge against Jun Shiyuan, they are still related by blood. Most importantly, that damned engagement. He couldn't bear it any longer. He just wanted to get rid of it immediately. Thinking of this, Diming-ju says in a low voice, "Bring them in." The person outside the door bowed in acknowledgement and went outside the camp to pass the order. Elder Chong looks at Diming-ju somewhat suspiciously. He felt that the actions of the Lord and the honored demon today were very strange. There seemed to be a secret between the two that no one else could find out. Her gaze unconsciously falls on the vermilion jade on Diming-ju's waist. This jade looks somewhat familiar. He seemed to have seen it there before. A thought flashed through his mind. Elder Chong was about to grasp something. Suddenly, a blood-red light shines from Diming-ju's chest, forming a strange totem. The totem shook uncontrollably in the bloody light, as if it would shatter at any moment. The room was silent for a moment. Everyone's expression changed. This is a blood-pact totem. It's Pajun's blood contract totem. If the totem is broken, does that mean that Pajun is about to die? How could this be? Diming-ju makes a gesture in the air, and there's already a soul lamp in his palm, sparkling and translucent like jade. However, the flame on the soul lamp was already so weak that it was only the size of soybean. As the breeze blew in through the window, it flickered, as if it would disappear at any moment. Elder Chang's complexion is pale. He looks towards Diming-ju in alarm. Jun Shang, Pajun is in imminent danger. Diming-ju's expression can still be considered calm. He says in a low voice, Ben Jun can now sense Pajun's position. He is in the Yinwu continent. Ben Jun will rush over now. This place, Elder Chong hurriedly said, "Don't worry, Lord. We won't let anyone know that you've left." They all know very well that there are traitors in the polar domain. There are also many people in the Nether Realm and the demon race who want to annex the polar domain. If people knew that Diming-ju had gone to the Yinwu continent, then ambushing and killing him like the last time with Li Weiran, adding insult to injury, they would definitely not be few. Chapter 3888. Diming-ju nodded, didn't say anything more, and disappeared. Not long after he disappeared, there was a knock on the door. Reporting to the Lord, Lady Shuejai is here. At this moment, Xinglang's heart was burning with anxiety. If it wasn't for the fact that his cultivation was too low and he would only be a burden to Jun Shang if he went, he would go along even if he died. When he heard Lady Shuejai's name, he wanted to shout, "Get lost! What's there to see?" However, before he could say anything, Elder Chong covered his mouth. Elder Chong coughed lightly and tried to sound as normal as possible. "Invite him in." From the moment Shuejai entered the polar domain camp, she had been secretly observing. The more he observed, the more shocked he became. The polar domain's strength was far stronger than she had imagined. The demon race was clearly the most arrogant and conceited race. But in the polar domain's soldiers, she also saw the domineering confidence of "if not me, then who?" There's also the obedience and loyalty that the demons didn't have. According to the words of the polar domain soldiers, the worship of their emperor even surpassed the worship of the devil race towards the devil lord. This is the conviction that Diming-ju, the strongest person in the Xioshin continent, brings to the polar domain. Against such a great army, could the demons really win? His heart was filled with shock and astonishment. The smile on Shueji's face became even more enchanting. She wore a snow-white fairy dress without any makeup. Her long hair was tied up loosely with a white ribbon. She was dressed in an incomparably pure manner, but her entire body exuded an enchanting charm. The polar domain soldier who took her to the main camp blushed to the roots of his ears. He lowered his head all the way, not daring to look at her. The way he spoke to her was indescribably gentle and warm. Only then did Shueji feel a little better. Her bewitching technique was indeed invincible. So what if the polar domain's army was formidable? As long as she can charm Dimingju, the thousands of troops and horses will still be able to play with them as they please. As the door opened, the smile on Shueji's face became even more charming. The tips of her brows and the corners of her eyes seemed to be dyed with 10,000 kinds of amorous feelings. However, as soon as she entered the house, she was dumbfounded. After looking around, Shueji blinked her eyes and asked, "May I ask where is the sovereign emperor that I want to meet?" Star Wolf sneered. "Who do you think you are? You think you can meet the celestial emperor whenever you want to?" Shueji gritted her teeth so hard that they almost broke. It wasn't easy for her to put on the most pitiful and flirtatious appearance to enter, but in the end, the person she was supposed to seduce was nowhere to be seen. Elder Chong coughed lightly and said, "Jun Shang doesn't meet just anyone. There is no harm for Miss Shueji to tell us first. What is the matter that you wish to see us for? After we have made our decision, we will let Jun Shang decide whether to see you or not." Pausing for a moment, he stroked his beard and said with a smile, "After all, if we were to send a random person to seek an audience with the Demon Lord wouldn't accept him, right?" Shueji's face was livid, but she had to admit that what Elder Chong had said was true. Who was the Demon Lord? If he were to summon any random small fry, wouldn't that be terrible? Didn't they see that Yin Wuji had been rejected by their Demon Lord? Wait a minute. How could she be a shady little minion? She was the enchanting Shueji who could charm all the men in the world. Shueji took a deep breath and regained her vigorous fighting spirit. It didn't matter that she couldn't charm Dimingju for the time being. These people in front of her were all Dimingju's trusted subordinates. If she could charm these people, then wouldn't it be as easy as turning over her hand to get close to Dimingju? See. Chapter 3889. The Snow Girl rolled her eyes and glanced at the faces of the people around her. In the end, he chose Ingmei. Of all the people in the room, Ingmei was the most handsome. However, there was a cold and abstinent temperament about him, which made people want to flirt with him and see what he looked like when he was in love. Moreover, Shueji knows that Ingmei is one of Dimingju's 4 great imperial guards, the leader of the Xian department. The Xian division was the strongest division apart from the ghost-killing division that defeating armies was in charge of. Only such an expert was worthy of her bewitching technique. Shueji's mind raced, but her face showed a regretful expression. Her eyes glowed brightly as she said, "Shueji has come under the Demon Venerable's order. Firstly, I have a few questions to ask Imperial Emperor. Only Imperial Emperor can know these questions, so forgive me for not being able to answer them in front of everyone. Secondly, it's also Shueji's selfishness." Her beautiful eyes finally fell on Mei's body gently like water. His body unconsciously moved a little closer to Shadow Enchantress. At that time, when the sky collapsed and the hidden abyss was in chaos, it was thanks to the generous rescue of the heroes of the Polar Domain that so many of my demon race's people were able to survive. To tell you the truth, one of them is my close friend, Shueji. She told me that it was Lord Mei who saved her life from the poltergeist ghost. Shueji's gaze was sincere, and her tone was gentle and soothing, but it was full of bewitching power. I owe such a favor, but I can't repay it. Every time I think about it, I can't sleep or eat in peace. This time, the Demon Venerable has decided to attack the Polar Domain. Shueji tosses and turns day and night in agony. When she said this, her frail body was on the verge of collapse. Her skin was smooth and delicate, but it was pale. It was a perfect confirmation of what she had said. She tossed and turned restlessly, unable to eat or sleep well. Shueji only hopes that we can stop fighting as soon as possible. If Shueji has the chance to repay my benefactor, Shueji is willing to pay any price. As she spoke, Shueji's body swayed and fell toward Ingmei's body, as if she could not bear it anymore. Ingmei's hand had just grasped the hilt of his sword, and before he could move, she saw a silhouette rush in front of her at a speed that the naked eye couldn't follow. The silhouette held her in his arms and kicked Shueji away. Hanyi is like a wild beast protecting its food, holding the person in his arms tightly. He angrily says, "Get lost, who let you touch Ingmei?" Shueji lowered her head and looked at the grayish-black footprint on her snow-white dress. She was dumbfounded. She was actually kicked. There was actually a man who could lay his hands on such a beautiful body. Shueji forcibly suppresses the fury in her heart, the expression on her face becoming more and more delicate. But there's also an incredulous sadness. This servant just wants to thank Ingmei for his kindness. "Hanyi Darren, what are you doing?" "Hey!" Hanye's face turns green with anger. "Do you think I'm blind? You're obviously trying to seduce my little shadow." The snow girl looked as if she had been struck by lightning. You are... Hanyi proudly hugs Ingmei a little tighter and even kisses her on the cheek. "Little shadow is mine. Don't even think about it." The snow girl was in a mess in the wind. Ingmei pushes away Hanye's hand and is about to step forward. Hanyi immediately catches up, grabbing her waist and refusing to let go. He even whispers in her ear, "Little shadow, don't pay attention to her. She's clearly trying to seduce you. You mustn't be fooled by her. Don't tell me that I'm not enough to satisfy you. How can this kind of flirtatious slut compare to me?" Chapter 3890. Ingmei's face reddened as she glared at him. Recently, this fellow had been pushing his luck. If I don't beat him up for 3 days, he's going to tear the tiles off the roof. But then she remembered that this guy was even jealous of women and couldn't help but laugh. She pinched his ear and scolded, "Idiot." Having been scolded, Hanyi immediately smiles happily. The two of them had completely forgotten about Shueji. The snow girl was so angry that she ground her teeth. She kept repeating in her heart, "Dog. Men. A man." She was a charming, fiendish cultivator. So how could she be a flirtatious slut? You guys are the flirtatious bitches. Your whole family is a bunch of coquettish bitches. Taking a deep breath, Shueji suppressed the irritation in her heart and changed her target. Star Wolf. Although this person isn't as famous as Pajun and Ingmei, he is still Di Mingju's most trusted confidant. Most importantly, the Star Wolf was hot-tempered and easily angered, and its temperament was impetuous and straightforward. This kind of person might not look easy to deal with, but in fact, he was the easiest to seduce. However, the pitiful image from before couldn't be used anymore. Shueji slowly straightened her back and flipped her long hair. Then she slightly tugged at the clothes in front of her chest, revealing her exquisite snow-white collarbone. The originally innocent and pitiful little girl immediately turned into a mature and alluring demoness. She giggled and walked to Xinglang's side, her eyes like silk. "Brother Xinglang, are you going to watch your partner bully me like this?" According to Shueji's experience, the man in front of her would definitely be stunned. Then, as soon as his eyes met hers, he was affected by her skill charm. His face immediately turned red, and he stuttered. Even though his mouth was saying unpleasant words, his little heart was already beating for her. However, the confident Shueji was dumbfounded when she saw Xinglang's expression. Xinglang's expression was incomparably ugly. The way he looked at her was like looking at a pile of trash. However, it was also mixed with the fear and nausea of having terrifying memories evoked. What kind of reaction was this? The snow girl didn't give up. She couldn't help but puff out her chest and move closer. She reached out her hand to touch the Star Wolf's face. Who knew that Star Wolf would roar in anger and directly kick out? Bang! This kick is even more ruthless than Hanye's. The The snow girl prostrated herself on the ground, unable to get up for a long time. Elder Chong and Han Ying-mei are a little baffled. Why is Star Wolf reacting so strongly? Suddenly, Han Yi seems to have thought of something and bursts into laughter. Xing Lang, did you remember that time when Miss June wore women's clothes and drew pictures of beautiful women? Oh, that's right. I remember you were sent by Miss June to lead a befuddled life. Shut up. Shut up. Ha 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 ha. Xue Jie trembled as she crawled up from the ground. Her beautiful eyes were about to spit fire. Her enchanting and perfect body. She had never failed in her charm skill before. How could it be useless here in the polar domain? The point is that she hasn't even seen Di Mingju's face yet. Had her beauty deteriorated? Not beautiful. Charm lost its effect. Xue Jie felt that either she had gone crazy or the people of the polar domain had gone crazy. She, a beauty that could turn the world upside down, could not even be compared to a man and was actually treated like trash. So the only one she could seduce now was cough. Miss Xue Jie, are you all right? As for what you just said, I'll report it to Jun Shang. Chapter 3891. I can't bring myself to do it. I'm too old and ugly. This old lady, a succubus, also has principles and integrity. Okay. Before Elder Chong could finish, Xue Jie roared, I won't do it. Then, he disappeared from the room as if he was flying. Soon, someone came to report that the demon messenger, Xue Jie, had left angrily. Elder Chong and the others looked at each other. So, what is Miss Xue Jie doing here? Star Wolf said, who cares what she's doing here? I just want to know how Lord is doing now. Elder Chong took out Pujuan's soul lamp. The soul fire on it was still dim, as if it would go out at any time. He couldn't help but frown. Lord and Pujuan will be fine. Although he said that, for some reason, Elder Chong had a bad feeling in his heart. He couldn't help but take out the Hunyuan River compass. The compass was already buzzing, but there were no special changes. However, this normal was like the surging waves hidden under a calm lake. When the time was right, it would set off a huge wave. Cultivation Continent, Dabi Temple. Dang, dang, dang. In the empty temple, the dull and distant sound of the bell echoed again and again. A man in a kasaya stood at the entrance of the temple and looked in the direction of the bell. His expression was solemn, and his eyes flickered with a complicated light. Master, this day has finally come. He was wearing a kasaya and had a shaved head. However, he didn't hold any golden alms or magic staff in his hand, and his tone didn't sound like a monk at all. The real spirit bell has finally rung. Umeba, an old voice came from behind the man in the kasaya. It was accompanied by the sound of a wooden fish. It was calm and steady, as if it had the power to calm people's hearts. Impermanence is the law of life and death. Life and death are the law of life and death, and nirvana is joy. Fate and karma. Everything has its own destiny. What's going to come will come eventually. The man in the kasaya closed his eyes and said in a low voice, yes, what's going to come will come eventually. However, this time, I won't let it escape again. Floating Island. After the battle at Blue Thearka's camp, the entire floating island was reshuffled. No one had expected that in the end of this battle, the 3 alliances, 6 clans, 8 sects, and even the Lan clan empire would actually become the losers. The only place that rose after the war was Liberty City. This small city that appeared not long ago, and their incredibly young city lord had become the unparalleled overlord of the floating island in just a year. The news that the floating island would fall within 5 years spread like wildfire on the island. Some were hesitant, some were desperate, and some were actively preparing. Some people heard the news and rushed to the vicinity of Liberty City in a hurry, hoping to get their protection. However, Mu Yin and the 6 carefree sons were not Lan Chushi. They would protect their loved ones and friends at all costs. But he would never be hindered by unimportant people. Do you want to threaten them? Do you want to use moral coercion? Hee. In that case, there was no need to wait for the floating island to be destroyed. Did she really think that the titles of She-Devil and Unfettered 7 Devils were just for show? After suffering for a few times, Li Tianlan finally understood. These people naturally knew that Liberty City wouldn't care about their unreasonable cries and pleas at all. Like 10,000 years ago, when one person sacrificed himself to create a smooth path for all of them, it would never happen again. Chapter 3892. Because the only two people who were willing to sacrifice themselves to save them had already been killed by them. Luo Yu cut off the connection with Wei Mian, a mocking smile on his face. He could not help but reach out to touch the silver halberd hanging at his waist. As he touched it, the silver halberd shone lightly, as if it was jumping with joy. Luo Yu whispered, "Lan Chushi, have you ever regretted it?" He regretted giving without complaint, only to raise a bunch of ingrates. He regretted being held hostage by morality, only to be separated by death from his loved ones. Whether you regret it or not, whether I am your reincarnation or not, I will not live like you. Continuously becoming stronger and protecting my loved ones. This is the path that belongs to me, Lan Luyu. He murmured in a low voice. Suddenly, the communication amulet he had just placed in his storage space lit up again. As soon as his divine consciousness entered the amulet, Luo Yu heard eldest senior brother's anxious voice. Junior sister is in trouble. Everyone, gather at the northernmost Bohai Sea. What? What happened to sixth senior sister? Eldest senior brother. Eldest senior brother. The communication amulet dimmed quickly. Luo Yu guessed that eldest senior brother could not wait any longer. He was extremely anxious and did not dare to delay any longer. He summoned the divine beast by Fong and sped towards the northern horizon. Ever since the battle at Blue Thearka's camp, the floating island had been in a state of panic due to the destruction of the heaven-reaching halberd. But in reality, the cultivators on the island did not know that the unfettered seven, whom they were begging to ride on, had never stopped advancing. The seven of them knew that their current cultivation was far from enough to ascend to the immortal cultivation continent. But more than ever, they wanted to become stronger. So the seven of them traveled together, searching for mystic realms and fortuitous opportunities to strengthen themselves and train their Taoist hearts. During this time, Luo Yu did not dare to delay even a moment. He did not know if it was because of the silver halberd, but his strength had increased by leaps and bounds. In just a few months, without any external help, his cultivation had broken through the earth creation realm and reached the beginner stage of the sea-splitting realm. Everyone on the floating island would be so shocked that their jaws would drop to the ground if they heard about this rate of growth. But Luo Yu believed that he was not the fastest in the unfettered sect. It was even possible for him to be at the bottom, because every single one of the unfettered seven were peerless geniuses, monstrous geniuses that couldn't be evaluated with common sense. If his speed was slightly slower, he would be left behind by his senior brothers and sisters, especially sixth senior sister. Among the Xiao Yao seven, except for the eccentric third brother, who isn't desperately trying to catch up to Mayan's pace. He's afraid that if he's not careful, he'll be left behind or become Mayan's burden. However, Luo Yu had never imagined that the powerful sixth sister would encounter danger. Yin Ruhan placed sixth senior sister's soul lamp in her hand. If not for the obvious change in her soul lamp, Yin Ruhan wouldn't have been so anxious and scared that she didn't even have time to explain to Luo Yu. Sixth senior sister, nothing must happen to you. The fiery red bird streaked across the sky like a meteor, flying towards the north. At the same time, on the floating island, there were 5 other streaks of light that were also flying in the same direction. North of the floating island, the shore of the Bohai Sea. Run. Why did you stop running? Jun Mayan, didn't you say that you want to have a fair fight with me? Do you think you can still escape from me this time? That you're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.